Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the continuation of the NXTCC, or known in full as the Next Gen Racing Touring Car Championship Season 2, as brought to you on the Premier Sim Racing platform, available only on PC, known as iRacing. And today, we continue the story of the championship coming back from our Christmas break with round number 5 of 8 here in Japan at the Twin Ring Motegi circuit. No more formally today, after its 25th anniversary as of last year as the Mobility Resort Motegi. This circuit is a lesser known circuit on the international stage, but not to be forgotten about when it comes to domestic racing series in Japan. But it's no stranger to hosting international series either, having recently played host to MotoGP and continue to play host to MotoGP on an annual basis, and in the past bringing IndyCar and NASCAR to the circuit. Of course, this circuit originally designed and built by Honda Motor Company in 1997 and opened in August of that year. The whole intent of the course was to bring IndyCar to Japan. What it has instead done over the course of its 25-year history, it's brought more and more domestic racing to the circuit. It's brought fascination to Honda with the infamous Honda Museum located nearby, and it brings our drivers to stay in their touring car racing class machines. But as we get ready to go racing, Happy New Year to you all. I hope you're all doing well, that you've had a fantastic Christmas break and are all set for 2023. For we are at Next Gen Racing and we get it all underway once again today. We're an absolutely packed schedule, and let's take you through it. For in under 19 minutes time, we'll be going racing at 8:30 this evening. That's GMT, Greenwich Mean Time, or Universal Coordinate Time, UTC, for our qualifying session. 20 minutes of qualifying where all of our drivers will be out on circuit looking to deliver their best possible laps to set themselves up well on the grid for race number 1. 3 sprint races, of course, back to back, where our first sprint race occurs as of 10 to 9, where we grid up and go racing. 13 laps in duration, and after that we take a brief break before returning at approximately 25 past 9 this evening for sprint race number 2. Another 13 lap race, of course, with the finishing positions of race number 1 carrying over, and then we make our way for a brief breather after sprint race number 2 to get ready for our final race of the day. Of course, that is the inverted grid race of sprint race number 3, kicking off at approximately 5 past 10 in the evening, and that'll be another 13 laps to conclude our racing proceedings here today. In the commentary booth, you have myself, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain Spit, depending on what media you follow me on, and I'll be bringing you all of your racing action for the remainder of the series, and this series is being live streamed live from the circuit to 3 media platforms for your viewing pleasure. Firstly, if you are a YouTube user, you can go to the official YouTube channel for Next Gen Racing. Just search for Next Gen Racing on YouTube.com. Alternatively, if you are a Facebook user, you can always go to Facebook.com/groups/Next Gen Racing to tune in there. Or last but not least, if you're more Twitch inclined, you can go to twitch.tv/TX11 and tune in on Twitch. And we can see all 3 chats, so do not be shy. Feel free to say hi. Let me know how you celebrated your Christmas and how you're feeling going into 2023 and who you're cheering on tonight, because we've still got plenty of racing to come. And well, let's take a look at that season calendar. That is outstanding and what has been in the past. So, of course, last time out, back on the 20th of December, was when we last went racing back in 2022. And goodness me, it does feel as though 2 weeks have absolutely flown by. But last time we were in Austria at the Red Bull Ring, and a set of races which were absolutely thrilling from start to finish. But the big headline grabber, the show stealer in a way, was newcomer Callum Reid Garton, who made his place count in the pro class with 3 out of 3 wins. And it was Mikey Doble and Will Redford who just could not find an answer to the pace of Callum Reid Garton. But still, if we see Callum Reid Garton return to the circuit today, will he be able to make another trio of wins, or will Mikey Doble and Will Redford have closed the gap up? That'll be the big challenge. Indeed, can the field close up the gap, with Mikey Doble still your championship leader by a considerable margin, having almost half a round's worth of points in the bag over his closest rival. But before that, back in our 3rd round on the 13th of December, we were at Circuit Zolder in Belgium at the alternate layout of the circuit with the fast final chicane, and there was drama, there was tears, and there was joy up and down the classes. But it was the story of the AM class, where it was the run of Daniel Holmer, who absolutely flew high, and Daniel Holmer, with his performance in round number 3 and also his performance in round number 4, we must announce, has been promoted to the pro class. It is the only last change we're seeing in the classes, with the classes being finalised as of round number 3, but it was decided after the performances demonstrated by Daniel Holmer at the Red Bull Ring that he was to be promoted to the pro class over the season break. Prior to that, in round number 2 on the 6th of December, we were in Spain at the Circuit de Barcelona Catalunya, and there at the Spanish circuit, it was the arrival of Reese Watt, who dominated in the Pro-Am class, of course making it 3 wins out out of 3. And also we saw the rivalry between Mikey Doble and Will Redford only intensify with Chris Daines and also Gianni Peroni looking to get in there nice and close in the mix and trying to find their way to battle hard for those wins. And we started off all the way back on the 29th of November at Donington Park in the United Kingdom, where at the Grand Prix circuit, of course, all of our drivers absolutely fast and furious out of the circuit. Indeed, plenty of battles and moments to talk about in the season opener. But in terms of what remains then, well, today, of course, it's the 3rd of January 2023, and we're at the Twin Ring Motegi circuit in Japan. And after today, in a week's time, we'll be making our way across the Pacific Ocean to the United States of America to the Watkins Glen International Circuit. Of course, the affectionately loved Glen in the United States. And there, we're going to see some absolutely thrilling racing in the form of high-speed, high-intensity racing. Very different from what you're going to see today. And then the penultimate round on the 17th of January, we'll make our way to Germany for the Motorsport Arena Oschersleben. And then we'll be wrapping it all up in Brazil on the 24th of January at the Interlagos Circuit. And of course, name any other circuit that is not synonymous with championship finale drama, and indeed ending championship campaigns on the ultimate high other than Interlagos. You only need to look at Formula 1, for example, to see just how critical that circuit is to wrap it up a season calendar. As we get ready to go racing once again, let's give you an update on the championship standings going into round number 5. And we start off with the overall Drivers' Championship. This is with all the classes points merged together. And we can see here Mikey Doble leads the way with 54 points over closest rival Will Redford there. And Will Doble with half a race round's advantage now, at least if not a little bit more, almost accreting it out to a whole round. You would imagine that Doble will be looking to come back fresh-faced and go charging on as he continues all the way towards the end of the season to try and hold that gap, if not open it up further. The impetus is going to have to be on Redford, Delmont behind, and Dory as well to really try to close that gap to our top man. Will they be able to do it with Adam Delmont there in the close run towards Will Redford, now close in the distance, with Will Redford having a difficult last 2 rounds, but Delmont himself has to make sure he doesn't slip up at all, otherwise he may find himself falling in the clutches of Jamie Dory and also Chris Daines. Jamie Dory and Chris Daines, of course, 2 of the big protagonists of Season 1 alongside Gavin Gardner, but they've both quite not had the pace to be able to change the top 3 over the course of each and every round, albeit they've been shown brilliance, to be fair, and let's not discredit them, but they're in a close rivalry for P4 overall, with Callum Reid Garton already on 82 points after a dominant run last time out, and it's Martin Shirley only ahead of Daniel Homer based on result countback, and there's the confirmation that Daniel Homer has been promoted to the Pro class, much like Martin Shirley was in the opening rounds, and Andrew Pike and Kieran Sharp, they're the Sim Racing collective pair, complete the top 10. Sam Smith best the rest in P11 ahead of Gavin Gardner, with Adam McNally, Michael Leeson and Wayne Douglas completing the run to P15, and you have Gianni Peroni in P16 ahead of your first prime driver of Reese Watt there in the overall standings, P17, and Reese Watt the best part of 13 points clear, and Matthew Addy down in P20, with the 2 of them being separated by the pros of Nick Clibbins and John Higgins Jr. Coming on to outside the top 20 then in the overall standings, we now come to the majority of the prime drivers here, with Ian Manners leading the group in the run to P21 ahead of Alan McCain by 2 points, and then Isaac Doble and Joseph Doble, the 2 Doble brothers only separated by a point, with Lee Horn and Sebastian Bruberg further down 7 and 4 points respectively, and there it comes down to drivers being able to pick up a couple points here or there in the overall finishing positions, but not in the class positions, as we can see. Bruberg only ahead of Nigel Stott based on result countback, and the same for Brand G. Clays ahead of John Higgins Senior, Luke Jones, Jonathan Collins, and also Paul Scott in the run from what is P28 all the way through to P32. We now have Mark Sykes and Jason Morris both on 2 points each in P33, P34 respectively, and now Matt Emmons, the last driver, to have a single point to the name in the overall standings in P35 there. Yet to score an overall point, Bernardo Colby, Daniel Weston, Davide Favo, Elwin Sykes, Josh Brown, and outside the top 40 there, Liam Silkstone, Philip Bruberg, Rob McGregor, Sean Scooter, Stefan Vessels, Thomas Delaney, and Trev Anderson. But as we now come on to the individual class driver championships, this is where it becomes a bit more crucial perhaps. We can see here in the Pro Championship, Mikey Doble leading the way again by 54 points based on class point positioning, and well, Will Redford now has the unfathomable task of how can he close down his teammate and closest rival, given the fact that he has Daniel Holman and Adam Delmont for company close behind there, with the gap between Daniel Holman and Will Redford being in the region of currently what is 38 points, and that is only going to very quickly be upturned if Will Redford does not find the results he so desires. Of course, Daniel Holman now finds himself in tougher company, you could argue, given the fact he's been promoted, and with that he has the challenge of holding off Adam Delmont. 8 points between the 2 of them, and Adam Delmont wants to take that P3 status back as soon as possible, with Chris Daines a further number of points behind, and to do the maths, that's 37 points behind Adam Delmont, but you can imagine that Daines will be looking to fire on high as he goes chasing after. In fact, that's 28 points there as we do the maths correctly. And then Chris Daines in P5 ahead of Jamie Dory by only 7 points. The two rivals, as we said earlier, close together with Sam Smith P7, Callum Reid Garton P8, Martin Shirley P9, and Gavin Garner complete in the top 10. Andrew Pike falling out of the top 10 with a difficult day last time out, and now falls into P11. Best the rest there on 78 points, 1 point clear of Michael Lees, and then his fellow teammate of Kieran Sharp in P13 on 68 points. But Adam McNally, Johnny Pironi, Wayne Douglas, Nick Lewins, and John Higgins Jr. complete your pro standings. And as we come onto the Prime Championship standings, we can see here the complexion is a bit different, where we have two Tigers battling out to be the Titans of the Prime class. It's Reece Watt who leads the way ahead of Matthew Addy, but the delta between the two of them is only 6 points. And what's the story here? Well, both of them would argue that they are Mr. Consistent, particularly Matthew Addy, who's yet to actually pick up a whole string of wins in class, albeit he's picked up podiums, but he's not had that huge blockbuster set of results. Whereas Reece Watt, of course, really put himself on the stage with that set of the triple of wins in Spain, and that's the difference between the two of them, in that Reece Watt has really been flying high, but he's also had some major lows. Meanwhile, Matthew Addy has had some highs, but he's never quite had those blockbuster highs, near as he had those absolutely disastrous lows. He's been the slightly more consistent of the pair, and that's why they're so close together. Alan McCain in P3 would argue that he's part of this mix as well, 149 points, only 4 points clear of Joseph Doble, and Joseph Doble we have seen grow into form as the rounds have gone on, and an absolutely brilliant set of results last time out, and Joseph Doble really now starting to make himself an outside contender for that Prime Championship title. Ian Manners as well, and let's not forget about Ian Manners putting in a great set of results to the Red Bull Ring on 137 points, and that top 5 right now from P5 to P1 only separated by a margin of what is 31 points. Any one of those 5 could really start to dominate the standings as time goes on, or could we see it continue to oscillate back and forth between the group as they make their way deeper and deeper into this championship? Well, we hope for the latter. We don't want anybody to run away, of course, but if somebody is to run away, that is testament to their driving ability. Lee Horn there in P6 and 103 points. He's got his work cut out to keep Isaac Doble behind him, 2 points clear, with Mark Sykes on 94 points chasing after Isaac Doble and Lee Horn, and then Jason Morris and Philip Bruber complete the top 10. And best the rest in P11, Luke Jones, only based on result count back at this point, with Philip Bruber there having the strongest set of results that keep him inside the top 10. But behind Luke Jones there, Jonathan Collins by 9 points, and it's Nigel Stock ahead of Matt Evans by a single point in the run from P13 to P14, with John Higgins, or John Higgins Sr., ahead of Paul Scott there, only based on result count back, and then Trevor Anderson, Elwin Sykes, Sebastian Brewer, and Daniel Weston complete in the top 20. And outside the top 20, but not to be forgotten about, of course, Liam Silkstone of Bernardo Colbe, Davide Favo, Sean Scooter, Bram G. Clays, who's only behind Scooter based on result count back, Thomas Delaney, and then yet to score points, P27 through to P29, Josh Brown, Rob McGregor, and Stefan Vessels. But then we come onto the Teams Championship, and we can see here we have one clear runner up front at the moment, and that is the NDA Honda Racing outfit, consists of Jamie Dory, Mikey Doble, Joseph Doble, and Will Redford. This team has been unassailable so far, and indeed when at the very top of the pro class, and also they do have some great performances coming in the Prime class from Joseph Doble. That's exactly why they are leading the way on 484 points to 248 points held by Excite Racing. But to be fair, Excite Racing have had to really put in the hard graft to get into that P2, and they'll be looking to dig in and hold off Verano Motorsport on 222 points, who's sitting only with 26 points behind. The combination of Chris Daines, Gavin Garner, Gianni Peroni, and Matt Evans has been looking sharp, and they'll be looking to take the fight to Excite Racing, there's no doubt about it. With the Sim Racing Collective down 146 points, Andrew Pike and Kieran Sharp, the two drivers, of course, each team can be up to 4 drives, but the pair there really making themselves felt in the championship ahead of iRacing Esports in P5, and then we do have NXTGEN Racing Yellow moving into P6 ahead of SimTech Racing. The delta between the two teams only 7 points, with Bright Esports in P8 there ahead of the new team that's arisen on the occasion. That's Garton with Colbe Racing, consisting of Callum Reid Garton and Bernardo Colbe. They run in P9 on 75 points, and in P10 we do have HSR there on 48 points. Outside the top 10, meanwhile, but not to be forgotten about, we do have JW Motorsport there, who've dropped outside the top 10 for the first time this season on 43 points, ahead of the combination of Brown, Manners, Weston and Stock, the 52 Silver Crest Racing group on 25 points, and then we have NextGen Racing Blue in P13, ahead of CSA Racing, who've yet to pick up a single point in the championship standings of the Teams Championship, but could today be their day. Well, lastly, in terms of championships, we come to the Manufacturers' Championship, and we can see here in terms of applying the success ballast, well, you may have guessed it already, the Honda Civic Type R will continue to take the 75 kilograms of success ballast that will be applied to all Honda Civic Type Rs on the circuit, given the Honda has proven to be the #1 car so far this season. But now the Hyundai Elantra has moved up into P2, perhaps influenced to a degree by Callum Reid Garton's performances in Austria, but they'll be taking the 50 kilograms of weight now instead of the Hyundai Veloster, which will be demoted down to 25 kilograms of success ballast, and the Audi RS3 continues to take 0 kilograms. kilograms of success ballasters. Whilst it's not been the most popular car or the fastest, it's still a car that's been driven by a good number of drivers, and we'll have to wait to see who can pull off a blinder in the Audi today. And speaking of today on our circuit, well, we're at the Twin Ring Motegi circuit, but particularly the east layout of the circuit. Now, this circuit, located near the village of Motegi in the Tochigi prefecture of Japan, is a circuit which absolutely drives itself towards touring car racing, particularly the east course layout. The reason for that is, as you can see from the circuit map provided by simracingwiki.com, thank you to them as always for their brilliant circuit maps, this 11-corner circuit has a wide variety of heavy braking zones, chicanes, and also medium to low speed corners, which really bring out the best in touring car racing in terms of being bold on the brakes, being brave on getting back on the throttle to balance the concepts of understeer versus power and lap time, and you bring it all together here and you have a fantastic lap and plenty of overtaking opportunities as well. Because our drivers make their way down the start-finish straight towards turn number 1 into a brief depression, they go hard on the brakes as early as possible to bring themselves to the apex, and as they make their way through the right-hander, they'll cut the apex off and charge underneath the bridge, which runs underneath the oval layout of the circuit, and more on that a little bit later in the intervening periods between races. But as they make their way under the bridge, they'll then go right rather than left of the Grand Prix circuit. They'll go right and into the chicane sequence of turns 2, 3, 4 and 5, whereby 2 and 3 are open corners by comparison with the more closed apexes of turns 4 and 5, before they charge their way up towards turn 6, another heavy braking zone where it's going to be a battle on the brakes, and you want to be on that inside line to get the move done before you make your way underneath the oval section once again, and then through the fast right-hander of turn 7 before going into the sweeping section of turns 8 and 9, the left into right sequence. We're not going to see too many overtakes, but we may see 1 or 2 drivers go onto the grass due to understeer. Make their way out to turn 9, they'll head into another hairpin corner at turn number 10, a very tricky corner where you want a very late apex at turn number 10 to carry all the power and speed up towards the final corner, and 1 more hairpin at turn number 11, and making our way out of that corner, we'll have to do it all again from the driver's perspective as they make their way down the start-finish straight and get onto another lap. And to give you a quick reminder of the race rules, of course, this is a fixed setup series. In terms of setups, the only thing our drivers can tweak on the car is the brake bias. Driver classes have been finalised, and now as of round number 3, minor the adjustment, of course, of that Daniel Holman moving to the Pro class, but there will be no more adjustments throughout the entirety of the championship campaign. That's outstanding. With regards to the sprint races, the race 1 grid, of course, will be set based on the results of qualifying. The race 2 grid shall be based on the results of race 1, so whoever wins race 1 starts on pole for race 2, and we work our way down the order. The race 3 grid shall be a reverse grid based on the results of race number 2, with the reversal position being drawn live from the commentary booth from between P6 and P12, and we'll be cutting over to the commentary booth, and I'll be doing the draw from the Lottery Bowl. And of course, really, we should say that it's from between P6 and P11, with P12 coming out last time, so we will not be seeing P12 in the Lottery Bowl today. And then each driver shall have 2 fast repairs available in each race, and each race shall conclude either after the allotted lap amount, that is of course 13 laps today, or 30 minutes if we see multiple safety cars out on circuit. Also, just to remind you, in terms of race stewarding, there's an independent race director available for the steward in the race in terms of track limit infringements and the deployment of the safety car. And in terms of track limit warnings, our drivers don't have to worry about the first 3 warnings. They'll just get a warning. They won't get any penalties. But if they pick up a 4th warning, it's a 5-second post-race time penalty. If they pick up a 5th warning, it's a 10-second post-race time penalty. And a 6th warning, of course, means it's a drive-through penalty, which must be served within 3 laps of being awarded, and racing incidents shall be reviewed post-round. That's enough rules, regulations, and everything in between. I think we set the scene of where we are after 4 rounds. Let's head back to those live pictures and get ready to go racing. And, well, as we do look here to our drivers heading around, we look to Martin Shirley making his way through the right-hander of turn 2 and into 3-4 at the moment. And we'll want to watch out for Simtech Racing. He's definitely proven himself to be a very fast and adept driver behind the wheel of that Hyundai of Veloster time and time again. And, well, despite the fact when he got promoted from the Prime class to the Prime class, it did look as though he was having to really fight hard and dig into the Pro class. He has found his place within the class and is definitely now starting to see those results come on in. And indeed the same for Michael Lease, as we see him here in the Excite Racing at Veloster, making his way down into turn number 1. A little bit snaking on the front end there, interestingly enough, which can be a bit difficult, and cold tyres in particular, the front end of the car does not want to bite in, but he'll be getting himself all acclimatised very soon. Of course, a number of these drivers have recently been putting the practice in and have had their time off during the Christmas break, whether they were consuming the mince pies or alternatively just getting 40 winks of sleep or anything in between. It's a festive season to be enjoyed by all, and, well, Mikey Doble, of course, having a lot of downtime, much like all the other drivers here, and the Hyundai Honda Racing driver going into this round with all the momentum on his side effectively as he heads on through here with that championship lead in the Pro class and overall, and knowing he is the man to beat. And when you're the man to beat, the one good side about that, of course, is everybody has has to try and find a way to beat you on raw pace. And right now in this practice session, he's looking to be 3/10 of a second faster than whatever anybody else has been able to bring to the table in these practice laps. But of course, practice laps are no true indicator of what we can expect when we go into qualifying, because some drivers will have done these laps with no fuel in the car, some of them will have done the laps with maximum fuel in the car, so we will certainly see some surprises. And here's one surprise. Well, you're not doing a double take there, ladies and gentlemen. That is another NDA Honda racing car, but it's being piloted by Joseph Doble there, another member of the Doble family, and he's currently looking to be the fastest man in the prime class here, albeit only 2/10 clear of Matthew Addy. And I think qualifying today could definitely be a very close knit between Addy, Doble, and also we'll have to wait and see if Watt can get in there as well. But to just give you an idea of what we're expecting in terms of the cars that are strong and weak around this circuit, well, in fact, given we've only got 30 seconds, we'll come to that when we go into qualifying, but it's definitely going to be a circuit that's going to lend itself well to all the cars available here. We have a mixture of straights, we have a mixture of braking zones, a mixture of types of corner as well, but the emphasis will be on start-stop racing. That's the thing about Twin Ring Motegi, whereby we do normally have straights followed by hairpins or heavy braking zones into hairpins, and therefore if you're bold on the brakes and you're smart on the brakes and you've got that ultimate grasp of brake control, you'll do very well here. Whereas if you're looking for more sweeping corners, this is not the place for them. Indeed, other circuits such as Watkins Glen next week are going to be going more towards that. But as we see Lee Horn heading through the final corner here, we get ready to go into qualifying, and it's time for 20 minutes of qualifying action. Who's going to take pole position? Let's find out. Well, as the clock begins to tick down here, we do wait for our drivers to make their way out onto circuit, and I believe it is going to be one of Ian Manners there in the pit lane, but I think we do have Jamie Dory, who's already made his way all the way down and out of the pit lane, but we are missing our circuit map there from the top of the screen, so we will get that reloaded for you. There it is, and as we see our drivers making their way on out now, well, we also see Gavin Garner here in the long line of cars, the long traffic jam, if you will, with a grand total here of approximately 30 drivers taken to the circuit today, and well, everyone's going to have to try and find some space on the circuit. And to be fair, is that going to be a challenge, I hear you ask? Well, compared to the Red Bull Ring last time out, yes, and you do want to have some space. Unlike the Red Bull Ring, whereby the straights, particularly in the first half of a lap, really saw the need for slipstream in order to gain that ultimate lap time, unless you felt more comfortable running in clear air. Around here, you do not want to be in the dirty air of another car for the simple reason there's a lot of very heavy braking zones here, and being in that dirty air can cause the car to go overly deep, and you don't really gain anything on the straights here. The only main straight where there's a lot of time to be gained is the start-finish straight, but of course they're getting it all hooked up to gain that run on the start-finish straight is a challenge in of itself. And do you really want to try and force yourself through that conundrum of a challenge? That is the big question. But as we look to Luke Jones here making his way on through what is the sweeping section of turns 8 and 9, of course, Luke Jones, one of the multiple members of JW Motorsport alongside Reese Watt and company, and whilst he perhaps has not had the headlines compared to his teammate, he's definitely been putting in a great set of results, and JW Motorsport really have been trying to find their way into his championship series, and lovely looking cars, of course, they're Honda Civics, and you can't miss them as we see him making his way into the final corner. And you'll notice they're going a bit deep, much like in front Martin Shelley and also behind Michael Lees. All our drivers trying to go a bit deep to get the better run in terms of straight line speed out of the final corner and in the run down towards turn number 1. When they're in the race, they'll go a bit tighter towards the apex. They won't go as deep unless they're battling there or trying to get the run on a driver into turn number 1. But as we see them making their way down into turn 1, of course, on cold tyres at the moment, we're not going to quite ride on board with any of the drivers yet until they've done about 2 or 3 laps to get themselves up to temperature, and tyre temperature is going to be critical here as well, because every little bit of grip you can take from corner to corner, the more speed you'll carry, and in return, the greater the lap time gain you'll make. As we do look from our JW Motorsport driver to our CSA team driver here, our Stefan Vessels, he makes his way down to turn number 1, and as he rolls his way through the right hand here, looking to try and get some team championship points on the board for CSA Racing, and will he be able to do so? That'll be the big question. He comes on through the chicane sequence there through turns 4 and 5 now, making his way up towards turn number 6 and looking to do well in that Honda Civic tyre bar. And in terms of the car, we're expecting to go well here. If we did not have success ballast applied to the cars, we would expect the Honda to perhaps be the strongest car here for the simple reason it does have the handling characteristics you want at a stop-start circuit such as Twin Ring Motegi, which is being great on the brakes and also great at low speed cornering and low gear acceleration, so going from second gear up to 4th gear But we do have that extra 75 kilograms of weight in the Honda, and that will really be felt under braking later on in the races, whereby when I try to make the way into the corners, we see there, I believe that was Adam Downward loose in the rear of the car, just snapping loose there coming into turn number 8, taking a bit too much grass on the apex curbing as he makes his way on through here, steering clear of all the other drivers. I think the sign that lap is in the bin. He's going to get himself set up for a new lap once he's let the traffic come on through. That's how easy it is to make an error, given the fact you want to attack those apex curves as much as possible, but if you take too much of the apex curve, you may just take a bit of the grass with you, and it all goes horribly wrong. But as we do look to drivers making their way down towards turn number 1, and we can see here Bernardo Kolbe heading on down here for the Reid Garton with Kolbe Racing Team, heading all the way up towards turn number 6 now, and will make his debut last time out, of course, the Red Bull Ring, enjoying it racing down towards the back of the pack, but still close racing with the likes of Jonathan Collins. And well, after he left the paddock and started making his way home, we heard from Kolbe, albeit off broadcast, he was saying how much he enjoyed it in round number 4, and we're very pleased there that, of course, he's back now and looking to go racing once again. And will he be able to have another happy day of racing at Twin Ring Motegi? I think he will be able to, as he makes his way underneath the underpass there. But meanwhile, as he heads on through here, we do cut over to the car of Jamie Dory, and you may notice here the banner, and also on the front bonnet, I should say, or the hood of the car, if you're speaking in American terminology, the tribute there to Ken Block, the recently deceased driver, who an absolutely fantastic driver in any discipline he applied himself to, but a very shocked passing of Ken Block as of quite recently, and therefore a number of drivers will be running tributes, whether it be Monster Energy on the front of the car in tribute of the Hoonigan, alternatively RIP Ken. Of course, he will be sorely missed in the world of motorsport, and a shock to us all to start off 2023. Not what we wanted to hear, but we will still remember him all the same, and indeed his contribution to motorsport will never be forgotten. It will be in immortality. But as we do see Jamie Dory making his way through the chicane here, not looking to drift his way on through, trying to keep on the straight and narrow. Meanwhile, we see behind there Martin Shirley drifting his way on through by comparison, and we're almost losing the rear of the car as a result, but still trying to get himself set on up there. And to give you an idea who's the fastest man on circuit at the moment, it seems after a couple of qualifying laps going in and tyre temperature and track temperature starting to come up, it is Mikey Doble who currently holds provisional pole position overall in the Pro class by 3 tenths of a second over Gavin Gardner as he makes his way into turn number 7 there, just cutting across the front of a car going quite slow. That's why the iRacing Esports machines there, the iRacing Esports Hondas, that was just lifting off and letting Doble go on through. And just in front of Doble there is Gavin Gardner, who in the Audi right now, P2 looking good. And in terms of the cars, we expect to do surprisingly well here. The Audi RS3 could be a big shout, because whilst it does not do too well at low speed corners, it's not got any success ballast applied to it, and add to that the fact that it's a straight line beast by comparison with its peers. And this car will definitely pick up a lot of speed in the run down towards turn number 1, and also the run out of turns 4, 5 in towards 6, and the charge towards the sweepers of 8 and 9. But as well, this car is a very comfortable car. It does corner quite nicely, and if Gavin Gardner is up there in P2, you know he's absolutely pushing it to its limit. Of course, just missing out on the championship in season 1, having run the Audi and back for more in the Audi this season, and he's definitely been making that Audi outperform expectations time and time again. But what about the other cars, I hear you ask? What about the Hyundais? We are expecting the Elantra to be very strong, and also the Veloster to be somewhere in the mix. The Veloster being that jack of all trades car that we talked about previously, and we'll have to wait to see where it fits into the proceedings. But when it's been piloted by Matthew Addy, you can see it's their provisional pole in the Pro-Am class. You can understand it is going to be a car that's not to be forgotten about here, and it can be pushed to the limit. And the number 57 driver here definitely showing it has a place in the field. But the one car that a lot of question marks have been raised over in terms of just how dangerous it's going to be in the field is what is not another Veloster in the form of Wayne Douglas, but it is the Elantra, the Hyundai Elantra, as we see here, the Sim Racing Collective pair, the TSRC pair of Andrew Pike and Kieran Sharp, with Pike ahead of Sharp there as they run in formation, making their way through turns 8 and 9. The Elantra, of course, being very strong over a single lap, but now it does have 50 kilograms of weight in the car, and the one big downside of the Elantra, tyre wear on the front tyres. Once you get to about 75% race distance, we have seen the Elantra really starts to drop off the pace, and with that 50 kilograms of success ballast, it will feel that drop off a little bit sooner compared to how it's been previously with only 25 kilograms of ballast. So will that undermine the potential supremacy of this car in amongst its peers from equal drivers in equal machinery. We'll have to wait to see, but all 4 cars are viable, but we are expecting it here really to come down to the drivers being able to make the most of their machine rather than one car dominating, with the Honda being so heavily impacted by its ballast, the Elantra being very fast over 1 lap behind those tyre wear concerns, the Veloster being the midfielder able to do a little bit of everything, and then the Audi RS3 perhaps being the sleeper car with the strength on the straights, and with no success ballast it may just feel a bit more comfortable in the corners. But speaking of comfort here, let's get ourselves comfortable very shortly to ride on board with one of our drivers for a reference lap. And as Jonathan Collins makes his way out of the final corner, we'll ride on board with him as he takes us down towards turn number 1. And we bring the dashboard up in the bottom right hand corner of your screen. Heading down towards the right hand here, looking towards the downhill braking zone and getting on the brakes just before the 100 meter board here, coming all the way down to 2nd gear and drifting away, as you can see, at the slightly off-camber nature of the braking zone. Now he heads right into the underpass into turn number 2, balancing the car on through before heading to left-hander at turn number 3, balancing the throttle here, not using the downshift, as he now heads into turns 4 and 5, turned in a little early there to apply corrective steering on entry, but as he makes his way through the chicane now towards turn number 5. But as he comes on down at this point, bringing the car over to the left-hand side and looking to brake there at the 100 meter board as he comes into the 2nd of the hairpins and coming on through, braking a little early there, but brings it nicely to the apex curve in 2nd gear and now powering out underneath the underpass and into turn number 7. Flat out through the right-hander at turn 7 as he makes his way up towards turn number 8. He's going to have a little bit of traffic there that'll stay right as he gets on the brakes here into the sweeping section at 8, 9, and here it's about balancing in 3rd gear, balance the throttle, bring the car towards the turn 9 apex, and as he gets back on the throttle there, a little bit of hesitation, a little bit of a wobble, but settles the car down and now brakes into the penultimate corner and the penultimate hairpin of turn number 10. Braking there at 75 metres, a very slow corner, but not as slow as the corner we're about to go into. Turn number 11, brings the car over to the left-hand side, gets ready to brake here, can brake late, so he's not carrying too much speed, and brakes at the 50 metre board as he comes all the way down to the apex in 1st gear and then powers out the corner, and that is a lap of Twin Ring Motegi East Circuit as he makes his way across the timeline there. A nice lap from Jonathan Collins, and thank you to him for taking us around as he makes his way on down as he comes charging on through here, currently in P28 with his best lap being a 1:31.64. Still got time on the board, we reckon, out there, and indeed as he makes his way on through with 31 drivers in attendance. We can definitely see the pros today really trying to put themselves ahead of the prime class. We haven't got too many primes who've been able to filter their way in amongst the pros. The only ones who've been able to do so right now, provisional prime pole sitter of Matthew Addy, also Reese Watt, who we see here, and behind him Joseph Doble in P15, as we see Joseph Doble here being caught up a little bit in the run out of turn number 9 into turn number 10 behind the monster car, the number 30 car, as being piloted by Nigel Stock. And we also do have Lee Horn just trying to nip on the heels of Daniel Holmer, and how 2 weeks have made a significant difference. Daniel Holmer, of course, having been moved up into the pro class, absolutely flying at the Red Bull Ring, but right now as he makes his way into turn number 11, really seemingly struggling to find some lap time at this time as he comes out the final corner. Is he on for an improving lap this time around as Nigel Stock goes P28? Home across the line, improved in the first half of the lap. He was P16, he's moved into, well, in fact he did not improve there, he was demoted to P17 by Lee Horn, who's improved to a 29.517, just getting ahead of Daniel Holmer. And well, time is wearing down as we say hello, of course, in the Facebook chat to Katie Eames, who's been enjoying the chocolate and Pringles over the Christmas break, and we also say hello in the Twitch chat there to Craig Pierce. Well, good evening to you, Craig, hope you're doing well. And again, just to reiterate, ladies and gentlemen, whether you're on YouTube, Twitch or Facebook, don't be shy, feel free to say hi if you can, and do let us know how you're doing and who you're cheering on as this qualifying session continues to play on. And well, we see here the Sim Racing Collective pair of Sharp and also Pike running together. Sharp now behind Pike as they make their way through turns 8 and 9. And well, of course, these two, you won't find them too far apart from one another, whether it be in qualifying, alternatively on the grid or in the race, and they do seem to be quite evenly matched in terms of their pace, and they are both pushing hard, of course, for top 5 finishes where they can. And the Sim Racing Collective have picked up a couple of those over the course of the season so far, and they're looking to try and go for the first podium at some point, we reckon. And right now with Pike P4 and Sharp P6, that could be coming sooner rather than later if things continue as they are currently. As we see here, Sharp making his way across the line. Did he improve that time around? No, he did not. And we saw there Pike backing off after giving the toe to his teammate to give him the opportunity. But meanwhile, as we see that a spin for, I believe that's Joseph Doble, we now jump on board with a Hyundai Veloster of what is Matthew Addy as he takes us around for a lap in the Veloster. We previously rode on board with Collins on the Honda Civic Type R, and let's see some of the differences. So heading down towards turn number 1 here. He's breaking the 100-meter board, coming all the way down to second gear. You can see the rear of the car lifting up there with the snap downshift as he now makes his way into turn number 2. Third gear balances the throttle before bringing the car over to the right for turn number 3. Staying in third here, getting ready to go on the power in the run to the second half of the chicane as he comes through 4 and 5, straight line in between the apex curves up to 4th gear as he exits turn number 5 in order to settle the car down and now makes his way up towards turn number 6. Gets ready to go on the brakes here and braking at 90 metres, full confidence now with less fuel in the car as he comes through the right-hander, gets it a little bit wrong there. You can see the car wobbling around on the rear as he came into the apex curve and had to settle the car down before he could get the power down as he now comes through turn number 7 up towards 8 in 5th gear. He'll shortly be going down 2 gears to 3rd gear as he drops it into turn number 8 and then makes his way to turn number 9. And you can see that straight line connection again between the 2 apexes as he comes out of the right-hander and now towards turn number 10. Getting ready to break there at the 50-meter board on the right-hand side, down to 1st gear here, digging deep into the gearbox as he makes his way out to the penultimate corner, and now up towards turn number 11. As he heads towards the corner, looking for his brake mark on the left-hand side, the 50-meter board comes all the way down to 1st gear, gets a nice early apex, then carries it through on the curve, powers out here, and it's been quite a nice lap. And well, the margins for improvement are fine from Matthew Addy. Can he improve this time around? He improved in subsector 3, and I think he's going to stay P12 overall, but it's still provisional pole prime at the moment by a margin of what is 300ths over Reese Watt. But as they make their way through the right-hander at turn number 1, we do look to Alan McCain here in the Hyundai Elantra, who makes his way into turn number 10. And McCain right now, currently in what is P6 in class, that's in the prime class, P19 overall. McCain's run of fortunes have gradually taken an upturn over the course of the season. Indeed, iRace Esports with some difficulties in the season opener, or the opening 3 rounds for Nick Clibburns, but they're finally finding those results now starting to come about. And well, the team are looking absolutely buoyant as we see McCain head across the timeline here, improving slightly over the course of the lap. Was it a complete lap improvement? No, he did not improve as a whole, so he'll go again with 5 minutes to go. And what's very interesting here, ladies and gentlemen, you'll see the pit lane in the run down the start finish straight. A little bit of trivia for you. The Twin Ring Motegi circuit here actually has 2 pit lanes. There's the Grand Prix pit lane and also the East pit lane layout. It's one of a limited number of circuits to have 2 full pit lanes on the entire circuit. And also, something we perhaps hinted at earlier, but we haven't mentioned explicitly, the oval layout of the circuit is a completely separate circuit to the road course that you'll see our drivers run on, whereby the connection between the 2 circuit layouts, so the oval and the road racing circuit, is through the start, finish straight and pit lane of what is the Grand Prix circuit. But because of that connection, it means that racing cannot occur on both the road racing circuit and the oval at the same time. But as we do see here, McCain making his way into turns 8 and 9. He won't be concerned too much about the trivia. The only thing he might be concerned about is knowing where the East pit lane entry is in case he picks up damage in the race. He needs to take a fast repair, but he's focusing on delivering a lap right now as he makes his way into turn number 10, drifting a little bit under braking there, just missing at apex. But the challenge here, of course, is when you've got to go heavy on the brakes, you want to try and go as late as possible and use as much braking power as possible to retard the car and get it stopped. But the flip side of the coin is go too heavy on the brake, you lock the brakes up, and then the car slides away from you under braking because it just wants to go straight on rather than turn on in. And again, these front engine front wheel drive cars, when you've got the front tyres doing all the hard work in terms of cornering and power deployment, you've got to balance out that need to go deep into the corners and get on the power early with the risk of understeering the car. And McCain just falling a little bit short there, but definitely trying to push on to get himself into the top 5 of the prime class here and get himself inside the top 18. Ian Manners is only half a tenth away from him, but on circuit he's a whole lap ahead of him as they make the way on through in the final 3 minutes of this qualifying session coming up. As we say hello there to Absy24 in the Twitch chat saying first time watching, looking forward to it. We're glad to have you with us, Absy. Hope you're doing well. And well, as we do see our prime driver here, Manners making their way into turn number 10 with Adam Delman just behind. Adam Delman once again showing his potency in qualifying with P3 at the moment provisional as the Excite Racing Honda Civic driver takes his way up towards turn number 11. But what about Gavin Garner here, you ask? One moment. Gavin Garner was P2. He has dropped to P6. He makes his way into turn number 10. He's got Paul Scott behind him. And it's two Audis together there as Kevin Garner peels out the way. And I think giving a bit of a toe there to Paul Scott, a bit of a cheeky toe Paul Scott capitalising on as they make their way up towards turn number 11. But meanwhile, whilst that's happening, Joseph Doble has just gone provisional pro and pole with a 29.318. And well, could that be enough? It's only a 10th over Matthew Addy, but to be fair, a 10th or a 1,000th, it doesn't matter. It's pole by a margin and it counts so much. And we expect overtaking to be highly possible here. But of course, every little bit of track position helps as we see Joseph Doble making their way up towards turn number 6. A flash of lights there from Jamie Dory just ahead, with Ian Manners taking it easy in the run up towards turn number 6. And Jamie Dory, they're giving him the flash to say, I'm coming through, watch out. But as we see the number 1 driver here making his way out to turn number 6, of course, running the number 1 as he is our reigning champion. Well, it's a championship campaign in the first half that hasn't perhaps started the way he wanted to defend his title. And right now, in only P12, you would imagine he's got a lot to do in the race. But to be fair, when we've seen Jamie Dory have a difficult qualifying session, he's always bounced back in the races over the course of the evening. He is no stranger to getting into the danger of fighting his way through the order, and as he makes his way through the penultimate corner here with what is the number 21 car tucked behind in there, one of his teammates from NDA Honda Racing, we believe, now making his way up towards turn number 11, getting himself set to go on to what will be his final flying lap. Indeed, a lot of our drivers now, they've only got one more lap on the board, and will they be able to make a difference as we see Joseph Doble here in the slipstream of Dory, and will capitalise as much as he can. He did improve in Sector 1 and Sector 3. Jamie Dory improves to a 29.296. Joseph Doble improves to P8 on a 29.185, and that puts him a well distance clear of the rest of his peers in terms of the prime class. The next closest driver being Matthew Addy in P15 as they make the way on around. Now, can Matthew Addy or Reese Watt respond? Well, there's no response from Reese Watt here as he comes into the pits. His qualifying session is done and dusted. To be fair, I think Watt will not be too upset by this, given the fact his main belligerent at the moment in that championship fight is Matthew Addy, as we see Addy heading on through turn number 7 right now. But you'd have to imagine with Joseph Doble definitely building that run of pace over the last couple of rounds, he really could now start to go from being an outside contender come the end of tonight. If this is going to set the precedent for the 3 races tonight, of course we're speaking very far ahead right now, and I haven't got my crystal ball out to be able to predict exactly what's going to happen. But if Joseph Doble is able to carry this momentum for all 3 races, and Addy and Watt cannot respond, we could really see a shake-up in the prime class come the final checker flag falling here in Japan. But as we see Addy making his way into the final corner, I don't think he's got enough here to respond. He's improved in subsector 2 and subsector 3, but will he improve over the remainder of the lap as he comes to the timeline? He crosses it, and what's it going to be? We improves to P11 with a 29.273, but it's not enough. And can anybody else respond? We see Lee Horn there coming across the line. He does not improve. He stays P17, P4 in class. Alan McCain, meanwhile, still on a lap here as he makes his way into turn number 10. Adam Delmont goes P2 overall, and in the pro class, there are 28.866. But Mikey Doble's in the pit lane. I think he feels he's got it all done for NDA Honda Racing with 28.491, being an absolutely staggering pole lap by almost 4 tenths over the field. Checker flag still waving. Drivers are still coming to the end of the laps as we coming across the line there. Elwin Sykes in the front of the picture. He does not improve. What about here? Alan McCain, does he move further up the order? No, he does not. We've still got a couple more drivers coming around, including Chris Daines here as he makes his way out the final corner. Takes a bit of grass, however, and that may be the lap will send done. And frustration there, I think, for Chris Daines after being on a good lap. It all went horribly wrong with the final corner. Meanwhile, Martin Shirley coming out the final corner. He parks up. It's all done for him, and I think that is qualifying done and dusted, ladies and gentlemen, as nobody else is on a valid lap or an outstanding lap at the moment. And well, it is Mikey Doble who has taken overall and pro pole position, the best part of 4 tenths clear of Adam Delmont. And meanwhile in the Pro-Am class, it's Joseph Doble who has taken P8 overall, but more importantly for him, pole in class we should say, by a margin of a 10th over Matthew Addy, who starts P11. Well, that's qualifying. Now the question is, how will it play out in the races? Will it be the day of Doble dominance, or will we see something completely shaken up here when we go into turn 1 on lap number 1? Of course, the potential for a bit of contact into turn 1 cannot be excluded, whether it's been touring cars and also being quite a tight apex. But again, let's not upset it or undermine it. We're expecting some door-to-door racing action, and how will it all play out? Well, we'll find out very soon as we see Craig Pearce there wanting a refund for no crystal ball in the commentary booth. I do apologise, Craig, but all of our drivers are off circuit now, and we make our way to the race 1 grid. So this is how they line up then for race number 1 of 3 today in round number 5 of the NXTCC Season 2, brought to you on iRacing. Mikey Doble takes pole position with 28.491 by almost 4 tenths over Adam Delmont there, the NDA Honda Racing driver, delivering and qualifying ahead of Excite Racing's driver who put in a solid P2. Wayne Douglas there, P3, a great performance from Wayne Douglas, the Next Gen Racing Yellow, joined on the second row by TSRC's Andrew Pike, with TSRC's Kieran Sharp starts off the third row, joined by Gavin Gardner alongside him in P6. We then have behind the Rhino Motorsport driver, Simtech Racing's Martin Shirley, and then we have prime pole sitter of NDA Honda Racing's Joseph Doble, followed by Michael Lees from Excite Racing and Sam Smith, who make up the top 10. We then have behind him, a little bit further on behind, in the 6th row, Matthew Addy and Nick Clibbins there, the Next Gen Racing Yellow driver, joined by the iRacing Esports driver and Nick Clibbins. And then we do have Daniel Holmer and Jamie Dory line up on the 7th row, with Chris Staines and Paul Scott behind him on the 8th row. Chris Staines having a difficult qualifying session, and Paul Scott having a strong showing in the Next Gen Racing Blue Audi. We then have Reese Watt ahead of Lee Horn on the 9th row, with Ian Manners and Alan McCain completing the top 20, and McCain having a good qualifying session for iRace Esports. And then it's CSA Racing Stefan Vessels who starts P21, joined by JW Motorsports Luke Jones on the 11th row of the grid. Isaac Doble and Philip Bruberg make up row number 12, and the Bright Esports driver is followed up by what is Bernardo Colbe, the Garton McColbe Racing driver, who starts P25, joined by CSA Racing's Davide Favo. And then on row number 14 we have Elwin Sykes and Jonathan Collins, followed up by Nigel Stock and Daniel Weston to complete the 15th row. And then starting from the back of the field on row 16, it will be Mark Sykes, the Next Gen Racing Blue, who did not put in a qualifying time. He starts in the back of the field, but to be fair, he could pick his way on through. We know that Mark Sykes can go fast when he puts his mind to it. But as we get ready to go racing here, ladies and gentlemen, well, there is the grid for you, and we get ready for the lights that will be coming in just 5 seconds time. So it's time for the lights. 1 red light, 2 red lights, 3 red lights, 4 red lights, 5 red lights. And it's lights out and away we go in 2023 as Mikey Doble gets a good launch, but Adam Delmont gets a better start in the run to turn number 1. But as they come charging down towards the opening corner here, look at Adam Delmont on the inside, and we can see that Wayne Douglas taking to the grass. He can't find a way through, he backs out and puts him behind as they make their way into the braking zone. And you can see Andrew Pike getting his Douglas makes contact there with Delmont, and that opens the door for Doble to go around the outside. Meanwhile, further back, we've got Paul Scott being turned across into the barrier there, joined by the iRacing Esports car of, I believe, Alan McCain, as it's a disaster for them. And further back, we see Philip Bruberg here battling side by side with Elwin Sykes and Luke Jones, as Sykes and Jones go toe-to-toe into the second part of the chicane, and Sykes is going to hold the inside line, but he'll take a bit of grass. There's a bit of contact between them, and Jones makes it on through. Meanwhile, back up front here, we can see breaking their way into the next hairpin, into turn number 6, Gavin Gardner right now on the outside, and with Martin Shirley in the run through 6, takes a bit of grass, and Shirley is turned around as he comes back onto the circuit briefly, but he spins it back the right way as he now gets up to speed once again. But a hair-raising moment there for the Simtech Racing driver, and well, he will not be too pleased with how that played out, as meanwhile Matthew Addy battling with Joseph Doble here, and despite being out-qualified by 3 places by Joseph Doble, Matthew Addy has not let it daunt him whatsoever, and right now is pushing on as they make their way up into turn number 10. Behind them, Joseph Doble under pressure from Daniel Holmer, who tries to go around the outside of Sam Smith, and you can see there Holmer in the Bright Esports Hyundai Elantra on the inside now versus Sam Smith into the braking zone into turn number 11. We have got an instant further back for Reese Watt. We'll take a look back at that very shortly, as I think there's been a bit of drama in turn number 10 further down the order. But as our drivers head towards turn number 1, we do see there briefly phasing in our existence Michael Lees, but charging down towards the opening corner in lap number 2. Daniel Holmer right now having to defend hard as Sam Smith looks to come on through, and look at what is Jamie Dory there, trying to go up the inside of Sam Smith into the corner. He's going to get it, or is he? Because the one change with turn number 1 is that high line has quite a bit of camber on it, and therefore you can hold that outside line and make it count. But Daniel Holmer goes a bit too wide onto the grass and loses out dearly, and I think he's going to lose out even more as he rolls his way through the chicane. Bit of contact there with Ian Manners, and Manners creeps through, but he's turned across the front of Daniel Holmer there, and both of them would argue that they had the space over the other. And there's even more contact with Bernardo Colbe coming into Davide Favo. I think the 2 of them got caught up, and it's a drama in the run out of turn 5 up towards 6. Multiple cars caught up as the seas part, and I think we may just have a safety car as a result of that, ladies and gentlemen. We'll have to wait and see, but that's not the way anybody wanted it to go, and I believe we do have a safety car that's left the pits. Now drivers can race up to the safety car, but then they must bring it down to an agreed speed, as right now Jonathan Collins trying to hold off Mark Sykes, who has gained 15 places of the start, or 13 places effectively as he makes his way through what is turns 8 and 9 and up towards turn number 10. The Next Gen Racing blue driver here trying to go on the offensive, but I think his offensive is going to be blunted a little bit by the safety car, as meanwhile we look a little bit further up the order to Lee Hornhill, hold off Nick Clemens in the run to turn number 11, but as they come on through the right hand here, we've got a lot to dissect, but the safety car just waits our drives in the run up to what is turn number 1, and they'll be backing it off now. As you can see, the safety car there being driven by Gaz Williams, the official Next Gen Racing safety car driver, now brings all the field together, and everybody now calms it down to a degree as we wait to know when we go racing once again. Indeed, massive drama all the way through, and with the safety car deployed, that gives us an opportunity to find out what exactly happened, not just to trigger the safety car, but also at the start with Paul Scott, who had an absolute nightmare start to his race. As we take a look back then, ladies and gentlemen, we start off what happened between Alan McCain and Paul Scott. This is in the run to turn number 1. Now there's Bernardo Colbe coming inside, and well, there I think is the contact. I'm not really sure who turned Paul Scott across the path of Alan McCain, but the two of them in the end just got tapped together. We take another look back at that, and we ride on board here with Paul Scott on the outside, and well, there's the turn, and I think it may have been Bernardo Colbe who gave him the little tap that turned him across Alan McCain. But as we take a third look at that, well, it was very tight in the run to the corner, and yeah, Colbe just with a small tap there has turned him across, and I don't think there's any malice meant by it, but in the end it has seen Scott and McCain both make haste to that inside wall. But then we do come on to what happened a little bit later on, of course, with that major incident. And well, we take a look at what happened to Reese Watt firstly before the incident occurred, and here's Reese Watt making his way into turn number 10 with Colbe on his inside, went onto the grass, and he came across there, I think after coming across the grass, and Colbe involved in that incident as well. Well, definitely Colbe seeing the flashpoints today so far, as Reese Watt having a knock to the wall, but not as severe as what happened to Paul Scott and Alan McCain, but still that will have upset him, there's no doubt about that. And now let's come on to the big incident that occurred only moments ago with regards to all drivers. And this was in the run, I believe, coming out to turns 4 and 5 and heading up towards 6. So what exactly happened? Well, Michael Lease off circuit. Well, I think this was, oh right, the battle happened, in fact the incident happened further on back there, and well, Michael Lease just being away from it all. And let's take a look back at what happened to Ian Manners firstly, and this was the contact with Daniel Holmer as they made the way through turn 4 and 5. So Manners was sent out of the battle there before everybody else got caught up into it with the contact he had with what was Daniel Holmer, but then it all went wrong from behind. And we take a look at what happened to Elwyn Sykes as he made his way through. We ride on board here with the CSA Racing driver, and as he came on through, you're going to see in front there one car being tapped, and I believe that's by the Bruberg brothers, and then it's just trying to pick your way through all the carnage that's happened in front, and Elwyn Sykes there for CSA Racing trying to find his way on through and ended up finding the car that's in the middle of the road, and it was none other than one of his fellows cars, and I believe that was the car at Davide Favo that was caught up. And we take another look back at exactly what happened from the perspective of Davide Favo from the exterior cameras here, and with Favo having, I believe, behind him Chris Daines have picked his way on through, and Favo into the wall there with Colbe as they came out of turn number 5, and Favo was the car in the middle of the road, and that's where everyone just had to avoid what was going on. And we see Nigel Stock there further up the road, he got caught up in it as well and got sent spiralling. It was a very difficult one, and well, Craig Pearce there saying that pinball anyone in the Twitch chat, and it did seem like a little bit of a pinball moment for our drivers as we now return to those live pictures. But those were the major incidents which occurred, and we are now back with the live pictures here as we make our way to the end of lap number 4. We'll head on to lap number 5, still behind the safety car. And to explain to the uninitiated here in terms of how we work the safety car, we are waiting for all of our drivers to be able to get back on circuit if they're still in the race, haven't taken their fast repairs, and then if they're able to get back onto the lead lap and start to catch up to the back of the field, drivers will be given a couple of laps to do so, but then we will be going at racing once again. So you can imagine really the prerogative right now for P21 downwards in the field, so that's for Elwyn Sykes all the way through to what is P30 of Isaac Doble, is for drivers to make their way onto the back of the lead field to get themselves racing. If they can't do it in a couple of laps, then it'll be likely the safety car will come in once everyone has cleared the pit lane and taken their repair work on the car, because at the end of the day we of course want to do as much racing as possible. But a nasty moment there for a good number of drivers, and definitely drama in Japan after the first 3 laps turn. But I think in terms of the incidents, the stewards will have their work cut out for them in terms of what exactly happened to lead to all of that. But CSA Racing really bearing the brunt of the massive collision through turns 4 and 5 in the run up towards 6, with Vessels, also Sykes and Davide Fava all being caught up in that instant to different degrees, but we will be seeing as they'll try to make their way up towards turn number 10. Things are calming down gradually as they roll their way on through, and well, with things calming down here, everyone will be given that opportunity to go racing again soon. But I think we will be seeing the safety car. Will it be coming into the pits? It is into the pit lane, ladies and gentlemen. It's up to Mikey Doble to take us racing once again very shortly. And as they make the way out to the final corner, Doble's gone already, and they charge down towards turn number 1 once again. And we got on to lap number 6. We still have another 8 laps of racing to go, and Doble nailing the restart here as he heads on down into the opening corner. Defending versus Delmont on the inside as they make the way down. Pike here looking to hold off Wayne Douglas as Douglas comes into contact with Kieran Sharp. And well, this is reminiscent of the opening lap where Wayne Douglas came into contact, of course, with Delmont into turn number 1, but they both survive it as they make their way through 3 and 4 and out towards 5 but now as they roll their way for the right into left combination of 4 and 5, and as they do, Douglas here, we just can't seem to find a way on past, and instead keeps falling back out of turn number 1. And now we've got both Kieran Sharp and Andrew Pike, the Sim Racing collective pair, up into the top 10 as Wayne Douglas coming in a bit hot there and sends Willis Kieran Sharp off into the gravel. Well, I think that might have just been a little bit too enjoyment there on the brakes from Wayne Douglas and going in a little bit too hot. A bit too much enthusiasm is the word I'm looking for there, and well, that has been a disaster for Kieran Sharp as a result, as meanwhile Lee Horn goes up the inside of Jamie Dorr. Indeed, multiple drivers do as the NDA Honda Racing driver on cold tyres since the restart drifts his way through turn number 8 into 9, and we can see off there slightly that is Sam Smith in the Honda as well. The iRacing Esports Honda is trying to make haste with his teammate Nick Clibbins in front of him as they make the way up towards turn at number 11, but side by side, Smith versus Dory. Dory on the inside there, he'll beat him on the brake, surely, and the iRacing Esports driver here is going to be hung out wide and high to dry as they make the way through the right-hander, and now down towards turn number 1 once again as they make the way on the start-finish straight. As they come charging on through here, the battles could not be tighter wherever you look in the field, as we see here Alan McCain really trying to hound the rear of Mark Sykes, and Mark Sykes, keeper one, having started from the back of the grid, has moved up into P17 overall. It's free wide into turn number 1 here, Sykes in the middle on the outside. It is going to be Collins on the inside, it's McCain, but Mark Sykes navigates the seas and makes his way back into position, but McCain gets a better run out of turn 1, he makes the inside of 2, Sykes defends on the outside to take turn 3, and he does so here with Collins being held up behind, and Ian Manners and Elwyn Sykes now started to get into the mixer as they battle their way for P5 in the Pro-Am class. This group of 5 drivers, as you see there at the back of this group, Bernardo Colbe, who is effectively a lap down on the group as they make their way into the braking zone, but as they do, it's 2 by 2, and Alan McCain tries to go around the outside now through turn number 6. Ian Manners gets to move down the inside versus Jonathan Collins behind for what is P7 in the class, P18 overall. And as they come through turn 7 and up towards 8, we look a little bit further up the field, and here is Daniel Holmer moving up the inside of what is Luke Jones there, and the Pro-Am driver decided to let Daniel Holmer go, I believe, and not fight him into turn number 8 there, not to exhaust any racing time. As meanwhile, there's contact there between Michael Lees and Nick Clibbins, who just cannot get a break in this series whenever there is an opportunity to do well. He's either got to grab it with both hands and nails dug into the steering wheel, or he's been given the elbow off circuit, and now Nick Clibbins, the iRacing Esports driver, has to come into the pits, I think with damaged steering rack there as he makes his way on in, and that's a disaster for Nick Clibbins, who gained so much ground early on in this race, and now it's all gone wrong. But thankfully he's still got 2 more races today, and hopefully he can find better fortune. Meanwhile, speaking of fortune, we're looking down the field where a lot of action is happening, and up front is where all the action is now kicking off. Adam Delmont versus Mikey Doble, side by side through 1, through 2, through 3, up into 4, 5 they go, and Adam Delmont gets ahead for Excite Racing as they make their way through the left-hander at turn number 5 and up towards 6, and Mikey Doble trying to go all the way around the outside here. Will he go for the switchback under braking? We'll have to wait to see as they head onto the anchors, and he's going to try and go all the way round. This is going to be bold stuff here, and Adam Delmont now has to try and hold the power as they make their way through turn number 7 behind, however, who we ride on board with right now is the Sim Racing Collective's Andrew Pike, or Mr. Fisher, he's also known, as he looks to try and get involved here. And you can see here, Delman trying to hold the inside line. There's a bit of contact between the two of them, as Delman is made to go very tight towards the apex of 9. Doble holds the outside line here. He'll have the inside into turn number 10. And Pike here tries to force the issue all the way in under braking. Gets very close to back, but Delman goes around the outside with more room to break into as they make the way out to turn number 10 and up towards 11. It's a three-way fight for the lead, and let's not count out the Audi behind of Gavin Gardner that's also in this mix. 2 temps down as they make the way onto the brakes at turn number 11. They come on through, and right now Adam Delman absolutely on fire here, putting the pressure onto Mikey Doble and trying to get himself another win in the books. So they make the way down towards turn number 1 on lap number 9 now as they come charge on down this top 4 very close together. You can see that Mikey Doble leading into the opening corner, but again, with the amount of camber on turn number 1, you can go high on the outside line and carry a lot of speed round into turn number 2, and that's the thing that Doble's got to be aware of. He has to defend in the middle of the road. It's a very different corner when you defend in the middle of the road, because of course there's no real line you're taking, but you're trying to make your car as wide as possible, and Delman's savvy to that, backs off and tucks in for the run through the chicane, and now up towards turn number 6 they go. Takes a little bit of grass out, and that's going to cost him a bit of speed as they make the way up towards the right hander of turn 6, Pike in behind, and then we can see a little bit off Gavin Gardner. Meanwhile, in the battle to be inside the top 10 overall, Lee Horn has just found his way past what is behind him with Joseph Doble, and Lee Horn into P2 in the Pro-Am class, with Matthew Addy leading the Pro-Am class in P6 overall. Well, right now, Joseph Doble may have been the man on the mission in qualifying and took the Pro-Am pole, but Horn and Addy right now are trying to make sure that it's not just going to be his day in the sun as they make the way in towards turn 8-9. Through the sweep as they go, and you can see Daniel Holmer here, after all the drama he's been involved in, now trying to pick his way back up through towards the rest of the pro field. He's in P12 currently, P9 in the pro class, as he looks up the inside there versus Joseph Doble. And you can imagine Doble will not be looking to let Holmer through unless he can find a way to use Holmer in order to upset the balance of Lee Horn, in terms of Lee Horn losing some pace as well, because he wants to go hunting after that P2. Meanwhile, a bit further back here is Alan McCain fighting hard with rival Luke Jones as they make the way into turn number 11 here in the iRacing esports driver who's behind Luke Jones at the moment, the JW Motorsport machine. Well, you can see as they make the way out the final corner, the Honda's fast up corner exit, but it's on the long straight where that Elantra absolutely flies. And Will McCain's going to look up the inside here. This is the battle for P4 in the Pro-Am class, P14 overall. And as they make the way onto the brakes, Jones just holds it high and again has that faith in the car, but he goes a little deep. And McCain there just sails it through on the inside and says, I can see what you're trying to do, but too much speed for you, as they make the way through turns 3 and 4 and very shortly 5. And as they come up towards turn number 6, McCain should be clear enough at this point with 4 tenths between himself and Jones as they head in towards the next hairpin. But in the long charge here, we look a little bit further back to Nigel Stock, of course, one of a multitude of drivers involved in that horrific incident in the run out of turn number 5 on lap number 3. And Stock right now tucked in behind Philip Bruberg, and they're battling for P12 in the Pro-Am class. And all the points to be gathered here, even outside the top 10 in the classes. And right now, these two enjoying a close battle. The 52 Silver Crest Racing driver, I think, feeling the zone that velocity's got a bit more pace compared to the bright esports driver in the Elantra as they make the way out to turn 5 and up towards 6. And we'll keep our eyes on that as they make the way towards the braking zone, but no move this time from Nigel Stalker. Will there be as he goes in? But he's going to be looking to try and get the feint here as he does not have enough braking force there to be able to go up the inside. And we can see Bruberg goes a little bit deep but stays ahead of that Nigel Stalker as they make the way under the underpass. But meanwhile, we look from towards the back of the field to the very front of it, the tip of the spear, as Mikey Doble sets a purple lap of a 28.655. And now really starting to build that pace, albeit Adam Delman right behind him as we ride on board the gearbox here, the NDA Honda Racing driver, as we look back to the chasing pack. And well, with Delman and Doble not fighting one another as aggressively anymore, as he almost takes the front of the camera off there, does Adam Delman, as they make the way through turns 4 and 5 and up towards 6. Goodness me, Delman really trying to get his nose stuck in here and trying to get into the head of Doble. And to be fair, it seems to be working at the moment in terms of putting that pressure on as they make the way through turn number 6. And you can see the difference in lines here, where Delman likes to take an earlier apex compared to Doble. Of course, both of them in the Honda Civic Type R, so equal machines here. It's all down to the drivers, and as they make the way up into turn number 8, it's going to be another close call there under braking into turn 8, but they both make it on through. But Delman definitely seems to have greater courage under braking and more aggressiveness on turning, whereas Doble really, I think, trying to protect those front tyres and give himself the tyre life he needs for those final couple of laps where we'll see that tyre degradation kick in. Of course, we have lost 2.5 laps to the safety car, so we will effectively see that tyre tyre degradation not have as big of a factor, but right now I don't think Doble's going to be worrying too much about that. He's got to go defensive here, and this will bring Pike and Gardner into the mix, albeit Gavin Gardner's fallen away a little bit, albeit I think the Audi RS3 driver is just trying to stay about a second clear, so that way when the top three fight, he can try and nestle his way into the mix and get onto the podium should they really start to get those elbows out with one another, because we know that Gardner's got a lot of pace in that Audi RS3, and I think he is just playing the smart play here, but at the same time with only 2 laps to go, including the lap they've just gone on to, can he wait for much longer is the big question, as we're hearing that Mark Sykes then off track and has lost a number of places, and now it's Jonathan Collins up to P17 overall, but with that no big drama further behind, although I say that, you'll remember Nigel Stock versus Philip Broberg, but it is now really starting to up in the ante, as Stock has gone around the outside of Broberg into turn number 10, onto the brakes into 11, and I think Nigel Stock here will get it done as they make the way out of the corner, but of course the change will be, he's got the Elantra, the absolute straight line supremacy car, as they make the way down towards turn number 1, and as they make the way towards the braking zone here, Stock covering off his rival. Is it going to be enough here on the defence? Remembering of course that Broberg will looking to go high and all the way around the outside, deeper on the brakes, Stock defends it, but Broberg gets back ahead, but he must cut from them to Joseph Doble meanwhile, as he tries to hold off Lee Horn. He's got back ahead of Lee Horn in recent laps, albeit we haven't quite called that on camera, but he's now back ahead of Lee Horn and is trying to push on here in order to hold on to P2 in the Pro-Am class, which would be a huge achievement for him if he's able to do so. But they make the way out to turn number 10 and up towards turn number 11, but as they come in towards the braking zone here, you can see Lee Horn defending versus Daniel Holmer. He doesn't want to be taken out of the fight as the white flag waves. I look out my commentary booth, and indeed that's because the race leaders are already onto the final lap. And where are the race leaders? Here they are. Mikey Doble leads the way onto the final lap here by only 3.5 tenths over Adam Delmont. But as they make the way under the oval section, you can see that Delmont has been saving it all up for one last charge. But has he got enough in the tank, as Andrew Pike here now starts to get closer and closer, and Gavin Gardner as well, who makes a little bit of an error there, goes a bit deep into turn number 4 and therefore loses the speed through turn 5, but Gardner is trying to push an advantage as well as they make the way into the braking zone for turn 6. Meanwhile, further back you can see Chris Daines here with Jamie Dory hot on his heels behind, and Chris Daines going a load of places in this race and trying to keep Dory at bay. Meanwhile, Daniel Holmer here trying to find his way past Lee Horn and can't do so, and Joseph Doble being given all the breathing room in the world in order to break away in P2 in the class, in the Pro-Am class that is. But as we see here, Mark Sykes battling with Jonathan Collins having a poor run out of turn number 5, and Sykes gets ahead as they make their way to turn number 6, but we look from them to a bit further down the order to Davide Favo, who is given the elbow onto the grass by Philip Broberg, and I think trying to find that outside line, but the CSA racing team having a difficult race number 1. But meanwhile we look back to leaders here as they make their way into the final corner, and as they come on through, well, Adam Delmont has huffed and puffed all he wished, but he's not been able to blow over Mikey Doble, and as he comes to line, he will take the win in race number 1 here in Japan. Mikey Doble wins overall and in the Pro class ahead of Adam Delmont and Andrew Pike on the podium there for the Sim Racing Collective. Gavin Gardner P4, Wayne Douglas P5, Matthew Addy makes it a win in the Pro-Am class, P6 overall for Next Gen Racing Yellow, and of Chris Daines and Jamie Dory, Sam Smith P9 overall, Joseph Doble P10 overall, P2 in the Pro-Am class ahead of Lee Horn. Lee Horn completes the Pro-Am podium, and it is Daniel Holmer P12 ahead of Michael Lease, and then it's Alan McCain, followed by Ian Manners, then Luke Jones will come on through to take P16 as they make their way under the underpass here. And Mark Sykes P17 just ahead of Collins in the end, as we see Jonathan Collins P18, Elwin Sykes P19, as the two Sykes drivers then not related having a little bit of a tussle, and then P20 Reese Watt there in a difficult start to his proceedings today, and definitely that is going to undermine his championship momentum going through this round, with Nick Clemens P21, Paul Scott P22 and Nigel Stock P23. And battled back to P12 in the Pro-Am class, P23 overall. Martin Shirley with a difficult race to start off, P24. Philip Broberg, P25. Davide Favo, P26. Stefan Vessels, P27. And then the last of finishers, I believe, Bernardo Colbe, P28. A lap down on the field. But those are the finishers who are on circuit, either on the lead lap or a lap down, ladies and gentlemen. What a fantastic opening race, and, well, close racing throughout. As our drivers make their way into the pits, Mikey Doble and Adam Delman absolutely close together, and Adam Delman, an absolutely revived Excite Racing driver, and I think today we could be seeing a win from Adam Delman, but let's not count out Andrew Pye or Gavin Gardner either, both of them right on the hunt. And Matthew Addy, well, it's been a while since we've seen him start off an evening with a win. Could this be a sign of things to come? We'll have to wait and see, but we've been waiting to see those final results. Let's bring them up on screen. So in race number 1 then of round number 5 of season 2 at the NXTCC here today at Twin Ring Motegi in Japan, Mikey Doble taking the win by half a second in the end for NDO Honda Racing over Excite Racing's Adam Delman, and Andrew Pike completing the top 3 overall. That's the top 3 podium and also the pro podium. We can see Gavin Gardner there in P4 ahead of Wayne Douglas P5. Wayne Douglas showing a lot of enthusiasm, but I think a bit hot-tempered on the brakes, and he'll need to dial that down for race number 2, because we definitely know he's got the pace to contest the win, but I think he's just approached it a little bit too on the throttle pedal today, but you never know what could happen in race number 2. That's not to take away from his brilliant racing. Then in P6 there overall, but more importantly for him, P1 in the Pro class, Matthew Addy for NXTGEN Racing Yellow ahead of Chris Daines P7, Jamie Dory P8, Sam Smith P9, and then Joseph Doble completes the overall top 10, P2 in the Pro class, and best of the rest in P11, Lee Horn there for NXTGEN Racing Yellow behind the NDE Honda Racing driver, picking up the final spot in the Pro Am podium. But now coming on to the individual classes, of course, we start off with the Pro class. And we can see here Mikey Doble confirmed winner by half a second over Adam Delman with Andrew Pike P3, and then Gavin Gardner P4 ahead of Wayne Douglas with Chris Daines P6, Jamie Dory at P7, Sam Smith P8, Daniel Holman P9, and then Michael Lees completing the pro top 10 with Nick Clemens P11 and Martin Shirley P12. Kieran Sharp, the sole retirement in the pro class, 8 laps down from the end, of course, after that contact into turn number 6, retiring with 8 laps still outstanding. And then we come on to the Pro-Am class. And we can see here Matthew Addy, your winner by 6.2 seconds over Joseph Doble there, and Lee Horn completing the Pro-Am podium, and then Alan McCain P4 ahead of Ian Manners, but McCain definitely showing great run of form here today so far. Luke Jones P6, Mark Sykes P7, Jonathan Collins P8, Elwin Sykes P9, and Reece Watt P10 to complete the top 10 in the Pro-Am class, with Paul Scott P11 best the rest ahead of Nigel Stock, Philip Bruberg, Davide Farvo, and Stefan Vessels for the top 15, and then Bernardo Colbay finishing a lap down P16, the Garton McCollway racing driver, Isaac Doble P17 and a difficult start to his evening, and then Daniel Weston at P18 to complete all of the finishing positions in the Pro class, with Daniel Weston, of course, not able to complete the race. They're 13 laps down. But that was race number 1, ladies and gentlemen, and now we get ready for race number 2. It'll be coming up in approximately 5 minutes time. Until then, don't go too far. You won't want to miss it. If race 1's any indicator, it's going to be a very fiery race number 2. We'll see you shortly. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we are back then for the build-up to race number 2 of round 5 of the NXTCC Season 2 here at the Twin Ring Motegi circuit. And, well, what can we say about race number 1? It was dramatic. There were a number of major incidents, including a huge incident involving 10-plus drivers in the run from turn 5 to turn number 6 on lap number 3. But outside of the incidents and the drama, we also got to see some absolutely superb racing. And, well, that's what we're all here for, of course, is close-knit racing action all the way through from start to finish. And it was a difficult race number 1 for CSA Racing, where it was Stefan Vessels, who we see here. Alternatively, his colleagues Davide Fava and Elwin Sykes all involved in that major shunt in the run down towards turn number 6, and they'll be hoping for better fortune in race number 2. There's no doubt about it. With the grid being set based on the finishing positions of race number 1, they'll have their work cut out, but they'll look to do everything they can to find their way further and further up the order. But it's not just about the instance that occurred there, it's also about the achievements of individuals, including Mikey Doble, who held off the charge of Adam Delmont in order to bring home the win in race number 1. But the India Honda Racing driver definitely now knows that he has got a very close rival behind him in the form of the Excite Racing Honda driver, in the fact that he was never given a breather. But to be fair, it did look as though at points he was in control of it and making sure to manage the tyres and manage the car to keep it alive. But at other points, Adam Delmont almost seemed to have the upper hand, and it is that contrast of fortunes between the pair in terms of who's going fast at a particular point in time that may just be the difference in terms of who's ahead come that checker flag. Joseph Doble, meanwhile, after a brilliant qualifying session, a difficult start saw him drop outside of the lead of the Pro-Am class, but still bringing it home on the Pro-Am podium in P2. He's had a great start to his evening and definitely pushing himself up there in terms of those performances. But Matthew Addy, who's not coming out of the circuit, currently in the pit lane, definitely started off on a high with a great win in race number 1, and he'll be looking forward to seeing what he can achieve in race number 2 and whether he can back it up, given the fact he'll give himself some breathing room from Joseph Doble and also Lee Horn, who for Next Gen Racing Yellow back on form with a brilliant drive to P3. No questions asked there for Lee Horn. He just got his head down and delivered on it, and I think in fact we will be able to hear from him very shortly and get his quick insights on how he performed in race number 1 as he gets set to go in race number 2. As we just try and patch into the car for Lee Horn, ladies and gentlemen, give us a brief moment. And in fact, as he makes his way up through the chicanes, we have the factory. We're just waiting for it to clear those chicanes so we can concentrate on making his way through there safely. But as he now does join us in the room briefly from the car, Lee, a fantastic drive to P3 in class in race number 1. We know it's only 2 minutes from race number 2 for yourself, but you must feel absolutely alive with that performance.
Yeah, I was really buzzing with that. It was a fantastic race. I really loved the battling, and yeah, I was determined to try and move forward a bit because I didn't quite get the best qualifying lap in that I wanted. And the gap seemed to open up nicely. The right hand under the bridge on cold tyres diving up the inside 3 wide was my highlight. Really, I was literally leaping up and down in my seat when I did that. And yes,
that's brilliant to hear. And we're looking into race number 2. Of course, you've got very close company in the form of Joseph Doble, the pole sitter, but P2 from him in race number 1. Are you going to try and get one over him?
Yeah, definitely. Had a really good battle with him actually towards the end of that race there. With Daniel getting involved, it just took me off the pace. We traded places a few times. So yeah, really looking forward to having another good battle with Joseph, hopefully.
All right, Lee, with a minute ago, we'll leave you to it for now, but good luck in race number 2, and we'll see you at the checker flag.
Thank you very much.
So that was Lee Horn you heard from there, ladies and gentlemen, on board with the Honda Civic Type R driver for Next Gen Racing Yellow. Pleased as punch with his performance in race number 1, and he'll be looking to take the fight to Joseph Doble in race number 2. There's no question about it as he gets ready to go once again, but we've briefly heard from him, and he'll be the only driver we'll be able to hear from as we get ready to go now with only 30 seconds left. But as we see Elwin Sykes heading out of turn number 10 and up towards 11, we will try and bring you those on board into with our drivers between races where time permits, of course, to get their insights in the run to each race. And well, we heard from Lee Horn, and maybe we'll hear from another driver in the build up to race number 3, get their thoughts on the reverse grid draw potentially if they've been filtered into it. But as we see Stefan Vessel's heading through turn number 1 once again, the checker flag is now out on this warm-up session, and we'll be very shortly heading to the grid for race number 2. And where it was Mikey Doble and Matthew Addy who took the respective wins in race 1, can they do it again? It's time to find out. So as our drivers get ready to line up, this is how they line on the grid. Mikey Doble will take pole position for race number 2 in NDA Honda Racing Civic Type R, with Excite Racing's Honda piloted by Adam Delman alongside him once more. Andrew Pike and Gavin Garner line up on the second row, joined by Wayne Douglas and Matthew Addy. Behind Matthew Addy, your pole sitter in the Pram class. Behind them on row at number 4, Chris Daines and Jamie Dory, the two rivals, one for Verano Motorsport, the other for NDA Honda Racing. They'll be looking to go toe-to-toe once again in brilliant battle in action, with Sam Smith and Joseph Doble line up on the 5th row, ahead of Lee Horner and Daniel Homer on the 6th row. Behind them, Michael Lees and Alan McCain on what is the 7th row, joined by Ian Manners and Luke Jones behind them on the 8th row, and then Mark Sykes and Jonathan Collins, P17, P18, followed up by on the 10th row, Elwyn Sykes and Reece Watt. Then outside the top 20, Nick Clevens and Paul Scott, followed by on the 12th row, Nigel Stock and Martin Shirley. And then we do have on the 13th row, Philip Bruberg and also Davide Favo. But we have to stop it there, ladies and gentlemen. It's time for the lights. 1 red light, 2 red lights, 3 red lights, 4 red lights, 5 red lights. And it's the lights out and away we go once again here. Will it be another Delman Doble battle into turn number 1? Well, look at this from Jamie Dory. He's absolutely flying off the line. It's going to be 3 wide into turn 1, and Dory almost makes it count, but has to back out there as Delman covers him off. But Wayne Douglas again trying to be adventurous around the outside into the opening corner. Contact there with Pike, and there's contact with Pike, and it sends Pike around. And well, Wayne Douglas has definitely seen pieces of the Sim Racing collection cars today, as meanwhile Sam Smith here with brilliant starts will gain 2 places as he comes roaring on through the chicane. As he makes his way up towards turn at number 6 right now, they all calm down, but it's a little bit of drama further back with Andrew Pike having a dismal start, and Stefan Vessel's also going slightly off in the rear of the picture. As meanwhile they make the way into turn number 6, 2 by 2 for most of the mid-pack. Now Michael Lees really trying to hold at bay in Manners as they come through turn 6 and up towards turn 8 they charge. But in the straight line run here, or effectively a straight line through a bend, they'll see themselves now getting ready to bow onto the anchors, and behind will Luke Jones here once again in the fight with Alan McCain. These two of course battling hard for P5 in the Prime class in race number 1. They're doing it again in race number 2 now as they make the way through the sweeping section and up towards turn number 10 and onto the brakes. As they do, you can see here, well, it does look as though Daniel Holmer trying to go up the inside of Ian Manners, but Ian Manners going as deep as possible. Luke Jones meanwhile up the inside of Alan McCain and makes it count. They're really threading the needle as they come charging on up. We've got Jamie Dory and Chris Daines into the pit lane, interestingly enough. I'm not sure what exactly's happened there. Well, in fact, we've got, I believe it is, well, Jamie Dory and Sam Smith, not Chris Daines, my apologies. Bit of a glitch in our timing tower there. We'll have to try and find out what's exactly happened. That's a disaster for Jamie Dory and Sam Smith, with the fact they've both had to drive through the pit lane. I think it's drive-through penalties for the race start procedure, but as they come through, that is going to release number drives. And Lee Horn, well, we haven't really talked too much about Lee Horn, but he finds himself the leader of the Prime class after the opening lap as he makes his way through turns 2, 3 and up towards 4. Meanwhile, being given the elbow out there, that's Joseph Doble battling side by side with Michael Lees. Neither of them wants to give way, but one of them's going to give way in the end, and Doble gives way, but Matthew Addy sneaks on through to retake with P2 in the Prime class, but he wants Lee Horn. He wants to go higher up the order, of course, given the fact that right now he's a long way off of Lee Horn, and a long way is in the form of 1.5 seconds, and that is going to take some time to close on down. Meanwhile, we can see here Luke Jones and Reece Watt battling one another as the two JW Motorsport drivers make the way out of turn number 6 and 7 and up towards 8. And now the question is, will Jones give way to his teammate, or will he battle hard for his teammate, given the fact that Reece Watt had a disastrous race number 1 on a relative scale of his championship? And as they make the way through turn number 9 and up towards 10, Luke Jones right now could be the key to unlocking a better position for Reece Watt as they make the way into turn number 10. But look at Collins on the inside of Watt. He capitalises there. The door was open. He sees it. He goes for it. But he exits out of the corner. Watt gets the power down more efficiently and gets the job done in holding the position as they make the way up towards the final corner. But as they come through turn number 11, we look a little bit further back to Jamie Dory, who once again into the pit lane. I'm not exactly sure what's happening for Jamie Dory. This is the second time he's come on in. And we've also got Davide Favo coming in, and Elwyn Sykes It's a difficult day for them, but meanwhile, speaking of difficulties here, Matthew Addy wants to go further up the order, but right now he's being made to stay behind as Lee Horn is given a breather, and in return, Michael Lease is absolutely tagged to the back of Matthew Addy, and Michael Lease in the pro class here really trying to make his way on through, and Matthew Addy in return saying, no, I don't want you getting on through, because otherwise Joseph Doble's going to have a snatch at me, and that is going to be a risk potentially in the battle for P2 in the Pro class if Lease is able to clear Addy. But as they make the way in, I think Matthew Addy right now has caught up to the back of Lee Horn, and in fact we have just had confirmation that Lee Horn with a slowdown in the run towards turn number 6, well, as a result of that, he is closed right back up. And meanwhile, speaking of closing up here, this is Wayne Douglas, who's in P3 ahead of Gavin Gardner. Now, how's that happened, I hear you ask? We'll try and find out shortly how exactly that's happened. But Wayne Douglas really now trying to push on as we see Gavin Gardner and Chris Danes tucked in behind. And the Runner Motorsport pair right now enjoying a good run in the top 5. But I think both of them would like a bite of that top 3 finishing position and be on that podium as they make the way down towards turn number 11. And Gardner there being covered off by Douglas, so they make the way, and Chris Danes into the pit lane. Now, I'm not sure what this is all about, but a number of drivers having to make a visit to the pit lane, and well, it's gone horribly wrong for them. I think it may be perhaps of the start-finish, the start line launch in terms of jumping the time, but Chris Danes into the pits in fact and parked up in the pit lane, so I think his race is going to drop all the way down the order. But meanwhile, Gavin Gardner here on the outside of Wayne Douglas trying to find a cutback run through turn number 1, can't find it and instead has to wait his turn as they make the way under the bridge and in towards turn number 3. But as they come roaring on through, we see here Nick Clebbins tucked in behind Ian Manners here, and it's the rise of the primes. There were so many pros out of position outside of the top 4, and therefore now it's the pros to try and filter the way on through. But of course the thing is, for these prime drivers ahead of them, they want those overall points as well. They want the right to say that they pipped the pros to the post, and therefore they're not going to give in easy. There's no rule to say that a prime can't fight with a pro, and also keep in mind that some teams have got drivers disputing between the prime and the pro classes, so every position is valuable overall as well as in class here, and Ian Manners is making sure to have that P11 to his own devices where he can. But Clebbins is definitely thinking of a move right now as they make the way on in. But meanwhile, I think we've got a driver off circuit, and that is Michael Lees, who has taken the long way round through turns 8 and 9 and decided to take to the grass as we briefly lose him and have him reappear. And what exactly happened to Michael Lees? As they made the way out of turn 7 into 8, he just went a little bit too much onto the curb and onto the grass subsequently, and then really became a passenger in the car and had to gradually steer it away from the tyre barrier and back onto the circuit. So that explains what happened to Michael Lees. That's not the way he wanted it to happen, as meanwhile we look from just outside the top 10 to the front of the top 10. Here are your race leaders in the former NDA Honda races. Mikey Doble still under pressure from Adam Delmont, but compared to race number 1 where they had the pressure of their peers behind, this time they've got a 3-second gap to Wayne Douglas in P3, and they're making it count as they head on through the chicane. As they make the way through 4, 5 and up towards 6 here. Again, the question is how much is Doble pushing versus how much is he trying to protect the car? You can imagine that Delmont's going to try and keep him as honest as possible, but in return, if Delmont is not able to make Doble completely push the car to the maximum, then we will see potentially Delmont drop away right towards the end, albeit we've yet to have a safety car, so we will see tyre degradation become a bigger factor in race number 2. But as we look from the leaders to the battle to be inside the top 10, with Ian Manners picking up P10 with Michael Lees is off, and Lees is now at the back of this group of 5 drivers, and as they make their way roaring from the right hand of the quintet, all caught in behind Ian Manners, all looking for that opportunity to get into the overall top 10, but catching is one thing, past it is another, and there is Michael Lees trying to make the move here on Luke Jones, inside to outside through turns 8 to 9. There's contact between the two of them, they survive it as they rub doors, and as they make their way in towards turn number 10, that's one move made for Michael Lees. He's got 4 more to make as he heads on through the left hand of turn number 10 and up towards 11 he goes, but he runs wide there, and in doing so he's going to have to defend in the run to 11. Meanwhile, further back there you can see that Andrew Pike balanced side by side with Jonathan Collins. Collins defends the inside, Pike on the outside, remembering that Pike of course got elbowed out right at the start of the race and lost out very dearly in the run out of turn number 1. And as they make the way up towards turn 1 this time around, where it's going to be the Elantra on the right, it's going to be the Civic on the left, and I think Collins here is just going to try and hope that he can outbrake his rival as they make the way down. Of course the Civic will have the stronger brakes, and he does so there, but Pike's able to carry the speed. away, but it's not enough from Andrew Pike. He has to back out as they make the way into turn number 2. But as they come right over, he goes round the outside into 2. Collins on the inside, and Pike finally gets it done. And now Collins has got to hold up a whole glut of Proms behind him as the Prom driver runs in P80 class. And the Next Gen Racing Blue driver's got Broberg. That's Philip Broberg, Paul Scott, Banana Kobe, Isaac Doble, and also Stefan Vessels all behind him as they make the way down. And up the inside goes Philip Broberg. He looks at a move in as the bright esports driver. Behind Kobe tries to get the move on Paul Scott, and as they come on through, Banana Kobe going for it versus the Audi RS3 driver of Paul Scott as they make the way through the right-hander at turn number 7. Flat out here, of course, side by side, and you can see Isaac Doble trying to get into the mix, but Paul Scott covers him off, and there's contact between Paul Scott and Isaac Doble that sends both of them to the wall, and both drivers, they try to squeeze themselves to a single bit of space, and in the end they found nothing but gravel in its place as they now get themselves set again, but it's a disaster for them. But meanwhile, in the battle to be the winner in the Pro-Am class here, with Paul Scott having to be towed to the pits as we understand it. This is Lee Horn, P2 in class at the moment, ahead of Joseph Doble, and well, Matthew Addy holding on, but remembering the fact that Lee Horn was leading up into a slowdown in a pass that's happened off camera. As they make the way on down towards turn number 1 now, it's Matthew Addy at the front, and then Lee Horn not too far behind by only 1 second, with Joseph Doble also trying to get into the mix as they make the way on through the corners. But as they come charging on around here and head up towards turn number 6, once again, once they've cleared the chicanes, we will very shortly get you a replay of exactly how the move was made by Matthew Addy for the lead of the Pro-Am class. And well, we can see it very shortly. We'll wait until they get to the end of turn number 6 for a simple reason. Joseph Doble may have a move here, but he does not have a move in the end. And here is the replay of how Matthew Addy took the lead of the Pro-Am class. Well, this happened a couple of laps ago, and as they made their way in towards turn number 8 there, I think Lee Horn with another slowdown after the track limits and having to yield to Matthew Addy. That's not the way we expected it to happen, but that's the way it has happened, and Lee Horn picking up that slowdown. It's not worked out for him as he makes his way now on around and up towards turn number 10 on our live pictures here. And as the drivers come roaring on through, there's still plenty of battling to come as we reach the halfway point of this race. And speaking of battling, we ride on board here with Stefan Vessels, the CSA Racing driver, currently P10 the Pro class, P20 overall, caught up behind Sam Smith, the pro driver here, P19, as he tries to find a way through, does Vessels, but he's got to be wary. He's got Fernando Colbe and Mark Sykes right behind him, and they're 2 Pro-Am drivers like Vessels himself who want to try and pick up a top 10 finish in class, and Vessels is the man to stop them right now as he holds on to that final spot inside the Pro-Am top 10. But as they make the way through 11 and down towards 1 once again, the CSA Racing driver here definitely trying to push on, and he ideally wants to chase after Jonathan Collins as they make the way on to lap number 8. But in the long charge down here, they all stay as they were for the time being, onto the brakes very shortly. As meanwhile, we look a little bit further up to Pro-Ams who are battling for position for P6 in class, P13 overall. It's Luke Jones who holds on to the position with Ian Manners right behind him, as Manners tries to find a way to circumvent a defensive line of Luke Jones, but it looks so here. The Britain's doing everything right as he goes defence on the inside there into turn number 6. Onto the brakes they go. No change at the moment, but Manners will look for the cutback, but he doesn't quite set it up in time. Meanwhile, as they come roaring on through, Mark Sykes has found his way past Bernardo Colbe, who had a slow run out of turn number 5, and Colbe in there not having the speed in the run to turn number 6, and Mark Sykes moves it up and now can go chased after Stefan Vessels. And then we look a little bit further ahead of them in the battle for P15, or what is P8 in the pro class, and we can see here just behind the battle between Jones and Manners is the battle of Shirley and what is there, Pike, as Luke Jones and Ian Manners continue to take time out of one another, and shortly the 2 pro drivers are going to get caught up in this mix. They made the way out towards turn number 11, and Jones having a poor run out of 10. Manners on the outside here. There's only really one line through this hairpin, and as they make the way on through, Manners has got to try and get back on the power as soon as possible and try to gravitate into the slipstream. He's very close here, and I think Manners could have the run in the run to turn 1, albeit we can see behind there Shirley having to defend versus Pike as they head on down towards the braking zone. It's going to be Honda on the outside. Meanwhile, Velocity on the inside. Can Jones hold it as they come through? I think he can, as we see that Manners gives the space, and now Manners has got all the pros behind him to worry about. As we see that cheeky move up the inside from Martin Shirley to retake P15 overall on Andrew Pike by simply capitalising on Pike being too close behind Manners, and the Simtech Racing driver there making it count as they make their way up towards turn number 6. And I can see that Ian Manners backing off, and I think deciding to let the pros go and catch back up to Luke Jones later on in the race. He's got time to do so, I think he'll be hoping that in doing so, he might be able to capitalise on when the pros come on past Jones to get through himself. But meanwhile, we look from the battle further down the order, back up towards what is the battle to be inside the top three and position oneself inside that top three in the Pro-Am class. And here is Joseph Doble still chasing after Lee Horn. Well, the problem for Joseph Doble right now is the India Honda Racing driver has got Daniel Holmer close behind, and the Bright Esports driver who's running P5 in the Pro Class, P8 overall, is trying to get closer and closer to make the move here to get overall points. And as they make the way through turn number 11, you can understand why, because it does look like Daniel Holmer absolutely flying right now as they head across the timeline. Wayne Douglas sets the personal best in P3 of a 28.838. Not the fastest lap out there at the moment, but definitely pushing on as much as he can. And Lee Horn starting to put in personal best as well. I think Joseph Doble here is at risk of falling backwards in the overall order as he goes a bit deep then to turn number 1. And Holmer's going to look up the inside here to try and make the move stick. Will he be able to do so? However, no, he can't. Instead, he has to wait. Meanwhile, in the run down towards turn number 1 a bit further back here in the battle for P18, it's Collins with Sam Smith going up the inside. And the iRacing Esports driver gets it done there under braking. Moves on through. Jonathan Collins now being pushed back to Stefan Vessels, but Smith goes deep, brings it back off the grass, but it's going to be a bit difficult there, and he just about slithers his way back onto the circuit safely as they make the way through turns 4 and 5, but that was a near miss for certain for Sam Smith. That could have gone to the wall, but as they make the way up towards turn number 6, here's Stefan Vessels trying to look for the move, and Jonathan Collins to try and get into P9 in the Pro class. Up the inside he goes. Collins tries to cut back, but Vessels parks it nicely and gets the job done as his next target is Philip Bruberg, who is 1 second up the road, and Stefan Vessels here definitely trying to push high in order to bring home the points for the team and for himself as they make the way into turns 8 and 9. And we know the team ethic at CSA Racing is absolutely at the core of their values in terms of they're all pushing one another along. And right now, Davide Fava with that early retirement, I'm sure will be watching on from the pit lane and really cheering Vessels on as he makes his way through turn number 10. But as they make the way through the left-hander, we look from them to a bit further up the order, all the way out to Sam Smith here. In fact, behind, we should say, in the order as he chases after Bernardo Colbe after that mistake, and he'll be looking to try and come through. But Colbe, of course, will want to stay close to Jonathan Collins. As meanwhile, speaking of further up the order, Daniel Holmer here trying to go around the outside again at Joseph Doble, and Daniel Holmer just cannot get a break here in making the pass. And the risk for Joseph Doble is this is the man who right now could take away that final spot on the podium of the Primes come the end of this race if it plays out in such a fashion. Alan McCain pressing on here, P4 in class, P9 overall. He's got his teammate Nick Clemens behind. I think Clemens would like an opportunity to go hunting after Daniel Holmer, so the two teammates of iRacing Esports may swap places in the near future. We'll have to wait and see. As they come through turn number 6 and up towards 7 and 8 they charge. It does look as though Daniel Holmer now trying to find a weak point in the armour of Joseph Doble here and finding little moments or mistakes out of Joseph Doble, being really hard pressed and pushed to get Joseph Doble to make an error. And as they make the way through, we look back here to Luke Jones versus Ian Manners. Jones on the inside in the run to turn 8, covering off the JW Motorsport Honda, and Ian Manners there losing the place for P6 in the Pro-Am class as they come through. That's P15 overall. And they're tucked in behind. Andrew Piker has found his way past the pair of them, as has Martin Shirley. So now the two Pro-Am drivers are able to go toe-to-toe without the pros interfering as such. As Jones gets it a little bit deep through turn number 10, then he really does seem to be struggling at turn 10, does Jones, compared to Manners. He just does not seem to have that confidence to get the car to the apex and get back on the power early. He has to go deep and then get back on the power later. And that's what's giving Manners the run out as they head on through the final corner and down towards turn number 1. And, well, will it be Jones or will it be Manners as Manners looks at a move here, looking to the inside and onto the brakes very shortly. Of course, every point matters between these two as they're battling for the top 10 in the Pro-Am class. And Manners on the inside here, but Jones is going to hang it around the outside. He goes a bit deep, however, and not between the two of them, but Manners may just have this as we see them make the way into turn number 2. Manners goes deep, but he covers it off down the inside into turn number 3, and he gets the move done for now. But as they make their way through the chicane here, I don't think it's long before we might see Jones coming back at him. I think Manners for now has got it covered off as they head into turn number 6, and I cannot foresee any change coming at the moment. Meanwhile, speaking of changes coming, here is Reece Watt, who has recently found his way past Alan McCain for P4 in the Pro-Am class for P10 overall. How did it happen, I hear you ask? This is how it happened. We see Alan McCain there running, I believe, a little bit deep and wide coming out of turn number 5 with the slowdown. And as a result, Reese Watt just going hard on the brakes. So you can see there what McCain was trying to do was get himself planted on the inside and close enough that what would be backed up into Clibbins, his teammate, but it didn't work out in the end. And then we caught them from this point onwards, but Reese Watt making a key move there and now started to arrest what was a poor start to the day in race number 1. But as he makes his way out of the final corner here onto the final lap, we look up to Wayne Douglas, who is now under pressure in P3 overall and in the Pro class, with Gavin Gardner chasing after him. And as they make the way through turn number 2, we can see there in the YouTube chat, David A. Farvo saying 100% got his pom-poms out for cheering on Stefan Vessels. Well, if you are an NXTGEN Racing Yellow fan, you may want to get your own pom-poms out right now to cheer on Wayne Douglas, because he will need it to hold off Gavin Gardner. I think has waited all this time to deploy the pace of the Audi. He's only got half a lap to go here as they make the way up towards the braking zone, but as they come on in into the right-hander here, Gardner's going to try and do everything he can to pick his way on through. He wants to be on that podium. It's been a while since we've seen the Audi Sport Customer Racing driver for Renault Motorsport up there on the steps of the podium, and there's only one car between him and that mission as we ride on board here for the remainder of this sector. And as he heads on through turns 8 and 9, just a bit of dirty air that calls in the car to go deep, and I think he may not have the run unless Douglas makes an error now. Has gone and takes the grass there, and I think that may be it. But meanwhile, speaking of it being it, we look from them to the leader here as he heads into the final corner, and as he comes on through, Adam Delmont fell back after the open after the race, and since then he hasn't looked back. He's going to make it 2 out of 2 in Japan. Mikey Doble takes another win for NDA Honda Racing, crossing the line, 3.5 seconds clear of Adam Delmont. P2 for the Excite Racing drive. Once again, he'll be proud of that. And in P3, it'll be Wayne Douglas for NXTGEN Racing Yellow ahead of Gavin Gardner. And then your winner in the Pro-Am class will be Matthew Addy, who makes it 2 out of 2 ahead of Lee Horn on the podium, once again P2, and Joseph Doble 3rd place in the Pro-Am class, P7 overall ahead of Daniel Holmer. Nick Clemens behind in P9, Reese Watt P10 as you see him there, P4 in class, a recovery drive from Reese Watt, no doubt about it. Then Michael leads P11, best of the rest ahead of Alan McCain, who finishes inside the Pro-Am top 5, P5, P12 overall. Martin Shirley P13, Andrew Pike P14, and then Ian Manners completes the overall top 15 ahead of Luke Jones. And then Stefan Vessels in the end finishes P8 in the Pro-Am class, P17 overall circuit. Sam Smith P18, Jonathan Collins P19, and then Bernardo Kobe completes the top 20 with Philip Bruberg just behind it in P21. Mark Sykes P22 there as they come on through, and then we can see a little bit further back Nigel Stott, the last of the runners out there on circuit, P23 of Isaac Doble P24, Chris Daines P25, and then Elwin Sykes P26 there ahead of Jamie Dory. And then we did have Paul Scott finish a lap down and Davide Favo with that unfortunate early retirement. A fantastic race number 2, and well, as Adam Delmont makes his way into the pit lane, I think even if he's going to be taking P2 twice in a row, he'll have no complaints about that, and he's been putting the pressure on Mikey Doble as best he can. But meanwhile, the prime drivers here of Addy Horn and Joseph Doble all in a single camera shot there with Michael Lease in between them. They're definitely all pushing one another hard, but Matthew Addy just seems to have that slight edge over them. But for Joseph Doble here, I think this has cemented his status of being in that championship fight, and Lee Horn as well, really enjoying the run. Reese Watt with a better race number 2, definitely making it work. Can he do the same in race number 3? That'll be the change for him. But let's bring you those race results, ladies and gentlemen, subject to any post-round steward inquiries, and here the provisional results are. Well, after our second race of the day, Mikey Doble making it 2 out of 2 overall in the Pro class, 3.5 seconds clear of Adam Delmont there in P2, and then Wayne Douglas completing the overall podium in P3 for NXTGEN Racing Yellow behind the Excite Racing driver. Gavin Gardner P4, they're not quite able to pip Douglas to the post, but still showing great pace and performance, with Matthew Addy P5 overall and taking the win for NXTGEN Racing Yellow in the Pro class, ahead of his teammate Lee Horn at P6 and Joseph Doble P7. And that trio forms your Pro and podium for race number 2 in the NDA Honda Racing drive. I think 90 could potentially win, but he's just not had the fortune in the race start so far. Daniel Horner P8, Nick Clifford's P9, and then Reese Watt making his way into the overall top 10, just getting on through with JW Motorsport with Excite Races. Michael Lees P11, best of the rest. But as we then come on to the individual class finishing positions, we start off with the pros as always. And we can see here Mikey Doble taking the win in class, 3.5 seconds clear of Adam Delman and Wayne Douglas P3. That's your pro podium ahead of Gavin Garner and Daniel Holmer. Daniel Holmer recovering well to P5 for Bright Esports ahead of Nick Clearings with Michael Lees P7, Martin Shirley P8, Mandrew Pipe P9 and Sam Smith P10. In a difficult race number 2 for Sam Smith at iRacing Esports, and then Chris Daines with those pit stops early on. We're not sure what exactly happened there, but it applied to both him and Jamie during the pro class, and they finished P11 at P12 respectively, not the race they wanted. And then in the Pro-Am class, by comparison here, we can see race winner Matthew Addy by 1.5 seconds over Lee Horde, with Joseph Doble completing the Pro-Am podium, and then Reese Watt P4, Alan McCain P5, and another great performance on the iRacing Esports driver. The 52 Zilla with Crest Racing driver Ian Manners P6, holding off his rival of Luke Jones for the position. Luke Jones P7, Stefan Vessels P8, and a great result for CSA Racing. And then Jonathan Collins P9 ahead of Bernardo Colbe, who finishes inside the top 10 P10. Philip Gruber best the rest of the Prams P11, ahead of Mark Sykes, Nigel Stott, Isaac Doble, Elwin Sykes, Paul Scott, and then with that unfortunate early retirement, Davide Favo P17, and with a slightly later in the race retirement, of course, Paul Scott P16 there for Next Gen Racing Blue. But those are the provisional results for race number 2, ladies and gentlemen. And now it is time, of course, for the reverse grid draw. So as we cut over to the commentary booth, it is time for the draw. And as always, we do have here our Next Gen Racing Lottery Bowl, courtesy of Cases UK. And particularly Matthew Addy working with the team. If you're looking for a prime flight case for professional work, then definitely check out Cases UK. But as we get, Sam Cases UK, I should say, forgetting the most important part there, the front of it. But as we now get ready to do the draw, we're going to close our eyes, shuffle the balls, and of course, make a point of then pulling one out of the hat. But we will close our eyes, and the number 12 is not in here. And as we get ready to go, we're going to pull one out of the hat. And our number for today, ladies and gentlemen, is... it is going to be number 9. So with that, that means it will be Nick Clemens who takes race number 3, reverse grid pole. But, well, we'll have to wait to see, can the iRace Esports try to turn around all the fortunes of the past and bring home a podium finish in the pro class? Or will it be another difficult day? We will find out soon enough. But until then, we're back shortly, ladies and gentlemen, approximately 5 minutes. Don't go anywhere. You won't want to miss it. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we are back then for the build-up to our final race of the day. It is race number 3 of round 5 of the NXTCC Season 2 here in Japan. And well, what a treat of a pair of races we have had so far. And if race number 1 saw drama and battling by the dozen, race number 2 was less about the drama, albeit there were some instances, and more about the battling and key battles in the podium places for both the pros and the primes, and also inside the top 10 in both of the classes as well. And well, we could talk about, of course, the rivalry between Mikey Doble and Adam Delmont. We could talk about that to the end of time over the course of the racing today. Well, we should also reflect on the fact we saw some brilliant racing from other drivers up and down the field. We saw Stefan Vessels make his way well inside the top 10 with a P8 finish in the prime class, albeit finishing outside the overall top 10, but still pleased with that. And we also saw the freeway fight for the win in the prime class between Matthew Addy, Lee Horn and Joseph Doble. But those are just a number of items, a number of talking points. But the key thing is it goes to show you that whilst we may have had a week's break in between the racing and a Christmas break at that, where many may have had a little bit of indulgence with regards to mince pies and whatnot, it has not slowed the pace or the tempers of our drivers down. And now we're getting ready for a race number 3, which is definitely going to be very close and very tricky, because with reverse grid, it is a top 9 reverse grid, and that means this man from iRace Esports, Nick Clibbins, will be starting on pole position and, well, making his way back up through the field after a difficult start in race number 2, after a difficult race number 1. He really has been the man who's had the bad luck over the course of the racing this series so far, but can he put the bad luck to bed? That will be the big question and bring home a big result in this race. We will find out very shortly, and in fact we may be able to get a quick word from Nick Clibbins, as we will try and get a patch through to him in the car very shortly. And in fact, as he does join us now briefly, Nick, if you're there, we just wanted to catch up with you briefly before we go into race number 3. Reverse grid pole after an absolutely brilliant and dogged drive to P9 in race number 2. Are you feeling ready for the task of defending from pole position?
Well, the pole position's a bit of a... yeah, I wasn't expecting that. So, who knows? I'll try my best.
Oh, indeed. We've seen you really delivering time and time again at the circuits, but you have had quite a bit of bad luck this season with the incidents you've been involved in. It does feel as though most of them have never been your fault. You've just been a passenger in all of them, but you're fighting all the way. This circuit seems to be favouring you quite nicely, however.
Yeah, it's not a bad circuit. I quite like it. It's quite a lot of mixed corners. But yeah, it's decent for the Honda, I think.
Well, indeed, you seem to be enjoying it. And a quick word on your teammate Alan McCain. He seems to be all fired up like yourself, albeit the two of you stepped on one another's toes in race number 2.
Yeah, see what we can do.
All right, Nick, well, we'll leave you to it. Good luck with the preparations, and we'll see you at the checkered flag.
Thank you very much.
So we heard there from Nick Clibbins from iRace Esports there. A little bit surprised at taking the reverse grid pole, but that's the way it's gone, and he's going to look to deliver on it there and enjoying the circuit as well. He briefly mentioned, but I think he might just be a little bit flabbergasted with the fact he'll be starting from the very front of the field, but at the same time, of course, he'll be getting his head down and mentally preparing himself for it. And, well, can he deliver here? The number 13 is unlucky for some, but he'll look to prove the point it's not unlucky for him. But as he gets ready to go then one last time today, with a minute left on this final practice warm-up session, everybody will be giving it everything. The sun is gradually setting here in the Tochigi Prefecture, and, well, with the sun setting here, will we see some tired arms and legs come into play, or will it be the heyday for somebody else? Will somebody pick up a big payday of points? Could Adam Delmont finally find a way to finish ahead of Mikey Doble? I think that's what he'll be thinking here, as he'll be starting effectively a row in front, albeit only a place in front. He'll look to do everything he can, but everybody right now will be thinking about how can they end on a high, and, well, Adam Delmont will want that ultimate high of putting one over the Pro Championship leader. But as he comes on through turn number 5 there, we can see Elwin Sykes here looking for a more positive end to the day after a difficult race number 2. And as he comes roaring on through, we also do see making the way on around a little bit further behind there in what is the NDA Honda Racing machine, albeit we can't cut to it at the moment. I do believe it is Mikey Doble, and there he is. And, well, he'll be looking to try and make it 3 out of 3. And, well, he does have a standard to adhere to. And you may remember it, of course, from Donington Park. Every time he takes the opening win in a round, he wins all 3 races. Can he continue that tradition? Well, let's find out, ladies and gentlemen. The checkered flag is out in the practice session, and it's time for us to start making our way to the grid. So as our drivers get ready to go onto the grid, let's walk you through how they line up for the final race of today. Nick Clibbens takes pole position with reverse grid at P9 for iRacing Esports, joined on the front row by Bright Esports' Daniel Holmer. They have behind them the combination of Joseph Doble and Lee Horn, who will be looking to get a good start as well, the two prime drivers, with then Matthew Addy and Gavin Garner on the third row, followed up by Wayne Douglas and Adam Delman on the fourth row. Then to complete the top 10, it's Mikey Doble ahead of Reese Watt, who missed out on that reverse grid order there, having finished P10 in the previous race. Behind him, it'll be P11 and P12 going to Michael Leese and Alan McCain on the 6th row, and they'll be followed up in row number 7 by Martin Shirley and Andrew Pike. On the 8th row, we have the pair of Ian Manners and Luke Jones, followed up by on the 9th row, Stefan Vessels and Sam Smith, and then Jonathan Collins and Bernardo Kobe complete your top 20. We then have Philip Bruberg and Mark Sykes starting our 11th row, with the 12th row being occupied by Nigel Stott and Isaac Doble, and then on the final couple of rows, Chris Daines and Elwin Sykes on the 13th row, Jamie Dory and Paul Scott on the 14th row, Davide Farvo in the last of the positions. But it's time for us to go racing, ladies and gentlemen. We've got the lights, and here we go. And it's lights out and away we go one last time here today, and Nick Clemens looks to get a good start, but it looks like he's bogged down slightly as Daniel Holmer gets the better run in the run up towards turn number 1. It's going to be too wide here as Daniel Holmer tries to break into position. A little bit of a further contact then. Holmer gets ahead, Joseph Doble round the outside, and Joseph Doble goes all in but finds the grass and the gravel as they make their way through turn number 1. Matthew Eddy goes a little deep as well. Lee Horn meanwhile up into P3, but he's being harassed by Wayne Douglas, who goes overly deep. Douglas to the grass there, he brings it back together, and Matthew Eddy gets caught up behind. As you can see, it's 3 wide for a good number of drivers as they make their way through 3 into 4, and there's contact there between Delwyn and Wayne Douglas, and they both go flying off the circuit and to the wall. But meanwhile, they make the way to the wall. Meanwhile, battling the way up towards turn 6 and hoping not to see the wall. It's Mikey Doble battling around the outside of Reese White here. Reese White having a cold, and tempered start as he makes his way through turn number 6. But to be fair, Mikey Doble gaining only small ground as well as they make the way under the overpass and now head up towards turn number 8. This dramatic start for the top 10. Further back, however, it's a little bit calmer and the storm is yet to come. But speaking of the storm, Chris Daines has flown off the line up to P18 already, and he makes the move here on the inside with Luke Jones at P17 as he now holds off Luke Jones on the counter-attack through turn number 9. Jones taps the rear, and in return Isaac Doble gets meshed into the back as they make their way up towards turn number 10. 3 wide here as Mark Sykes looks to cut a figure down the inside, and well, there he's only going to be able to do one thing, that is defend versus Jamie Dory, who has no luck in coming through by comparison as they make their way up towards turn number 11. We're hearing that Douglas and Delwyn have both been towed to the pit, but Jamie Dory here going 3 wide on the inside into turn number 11. A little bit of a tap there with the rear Jonathan Collins, but he backs it off just in time before he turns his opponent round, and as they make their way down towards turn number 1, they roar on through, and meanwhile at the front of the field, Gavin Garner on the inside and Nick Clibbens into turn 1. Can Gardner make it work here? Garner would want to get into the lead as soon as possible. He gets ahead and Clibbens goes deep. Lee Horn on the inside now. Lee Horn, your prime leader, he wants to clear Clibbens as soon as possible. McCain meanwhile turned across the front of Michael Leese. The iRacing Esports there settles into the barrier. It's a light tap. He'll be able to get back up to speed shortly, we expect. Meanwhile, the other iRacing Esports driver Sam Smith here, having gained what is 5 places since the start, trying to charge off with Stefan Vessels behind, and Stefan Vessels has gained 3 places since the start of this race. He's flying, but Philip Bruberg here and Chris Daines all trying to scramble around what is the South African as they make their way into turn 6. There's contact between Vessels and Philip Bruberg, and Daines up the inside is off circuit. That's Luke Jones, who's gone a long way off into the distance. We're not quite sure how that's happened, but it has, and as they make their way through turn 7 up towards 8. Now Bruberg, oh goodness me, and Chris Daines is turned there when contact with Philip Bruberg, sliding along the grass, and that's a disaster for the Rana Motorsport driver who was making fast ground, and he's got it all to do again as they make the way on through. We'll take a look back at that very shortly, as meanwhile we look to Nick Clibbens here, who really right now is trying to put the cork in the bottle and hold up the flow of primes and pros behind. He's defending there with Lee Horn on his outside into the final corner. Michael Leese up the inside, and as they make the way on out, we ride on board and look back from the gearbox and Nick Clibbens as he powers up towards turn number 1. It's going to be the battle of the Hondas versus the Veloster, and the Veloster will eventually have the edge in the straight, as meanwhile going slowly there, that's Adam Delman a lap down. Clibbens covers off the middle of the road here, puts it dead centre before opening up the corner slightly, and Leeds gets on the inside there of Lee Horn to make the move count. as they make the way under the overpass here. You can see Lee's trying to go on the inside there into 2, but this is going to cause Clemens to go deep for 3, and therefore he can defend on the inside. In return, Lee Horn cuts it back and gets back into P4 overall. That Lee Horn, to be fair, will want to keep Michael Lees between himself and the guy behind, because the guy behind is none other than Matthew Addy, who wants to try and make it 3 wins out of 3 with Mikey Doble close behind him. I think Addy's going to let Doble on through here and not fight it too hard. He'll let Mikey Doble fight his battles for him as they make the way through turn 6 and up towards 8. They charge, but as they come right on through, Andrew Pike here making a resurgence in this race as well, as the Sim Racing Collective driver here picks up the inside of Reese Watt, and Reese Watt running P3 in the Prime class right now as they come charging on through. But the biggest drop off the field, of course, Joseph Doble, and Reese Watt has picked up the pieces. Bernardo Colbay as well, we should point out, is in P11 just behind these guys, P4 in class. So the Prime driver here will right now, the Garton McColby Racing driver, definitely finding a lot of pace in this race. But meanwhile, battling for the lead overall in the Pro class, Gavin Garner around the outside of Daniel Holman. Now, can he make it work? It's going to be a drag race over the Audi and the Elantra. Both of these cars are the straight line beasts, but who's going to have to run here? And it looks as though the Audi's already got a nose ahead as they make the way down towards turn number 1. They come in the long charge. The Briton here is going to try and outbrake his rival, and as the Scandinavian backs out there, it's Gavin Garner who takes the lead of the race. And it's been a long time since we said this, but he's now leading with 10 laps to go. And can he make it count as Michael Lees meanwhile off circuit? And I wonder if there's a little bit of contact there to send Lees wide. We'll find out very shortly as he rejoins there, but he drops all the way from battling to be inside the top 5 overall to P12 overall, and not the way he's wanted it to go whatsoever. Meanwhile, we take a look back at what happened to Luke Jones a couple of laps back on lap 2. Well, this was in the run to turn number 6. We saw Luke Jones off onto the brakes, and oh goodness me, I think there might have been a little tap with the rear quarter panel, Chris Daines, who in turn came into contact there with, I believe, unless I'm mistaken, that was contact with the car of Bruberg, Philip Bruberg, and the 17 car coming into contact with Daines in the end, and both of them in the woods with one another. But we return to the live pictures, and as we do here, Michael Lee's trying to now pick up where he's left off in terms of chasing through the field. Meanwhile, Mikey Doble here battling side by side with Matthew Addy, and well, after getting ahead of Matthew Addy, Addy now battling once again. Lee Horn just in front of the pair, so for Matthew Addy, he doesn't want Mikey Doble to come between the two unless he can assist him in making the pass. And behind, you'll see there, that's the battle for P5 in the Pro class between Martin Shirley on the inside of where's Andrew Pike in the run to turn 11. Now, can the Simtech Racing driver here cover off the Elantra? It's the power and exit, which he'll be concerned about, and he does so there. He makes Pike back out corner exit, and Pike's going to lose a lot of momentum. He'll gain enough speed to get closer in the run to turn 1, but not enough to be able to make the move as they come charging down into the braking zone onto the end, because they go once again. And right now, the Simtech Racing driver just tucked in behind as they come through. Meanwhile, going deep, Lee Horn's gone deep at turn 1. A brief off track has upset his momentum. Matthew Addy takes the lead on the Prime class once again. The question is, can he keep it all the way to the finish, or will he find Lee Horn coming back in? Will he find Reese Watt of Bernardo Colbay getting close enough with the pros trying to pick the way on through as well? That's going to be the challenge for Matthew Addy here. And what does he do about Mikey Doble behind him? Does he let him go and lose overall position, given the fact there'll be some key overall points, or does he fight Mikey Doble and try to back everybody up into one another? Well, if you're Matthew Addy right now, he's going to have a lot of things to process, but I think for him, he's got to really try and keep Mikey Doble behind him to give himself a buffer. Because if he doesn't, I think Lee Horn will come back at him very aggressively indeed and trying to make the move count as they head on through. Meanwhile, trying to make moves count here, albeit outside of the top 10, trying to get into best of the rest. Outside the top 10 of the Prime class, it's Alan McCain in the iRacing Esports cars. Chris Daines loses the rear of the car and takes the gravel there into turn number 9. Just a bit too much speed there for the rear end to handle by looks of things. But meanwhile, Elwin Sykes trying to hold off what is Alan McCain in the run for P11 in the class, P20 overall as they make the way through turn number 10. Meanwhile, further up the road, Paul Scott here battling with Philip Bruberg, and right now Bruberg all over the back of the Audi driver, but the Next Gen Racing Blue driver here keeping his rival on the bright Esports Elantra at bay as they make the way up towards turn number 1 once again as they go on to lap number 6 of 13. Still plenty of laps to go, to be fair, 8 laps remaining, and with that still plenty to unfold here and still many questions to be answered as they head down towards the braking zone once again. But as they head on through, we look a bit further up the road to Sam Smith here, who finds himself at a four-way concertina with Bernardo Kolbe ahead of him and Ian Manners and Jamie Dory just behind. And as we ride on board with, well, in fact, that's Adam Delman just behind. We should correct ourselves. Adam Delman a lap down and not really being given the option to pass. He has to sit there, otherwise he'll have blue flags waved at him. And as they make the way up towards turn number 6, right now Bernardo Kolbe really having to dig deep here with an opportunity to finish just outside of the top 10 overall. And, well, he'll be absolutely pleased with that. But the question is, can he keep Sam Smith behind for the long term? As meanwhile, Lee Horn here defending versus Andrew Pike, and the Primes definitely shuffling it up in the midst of the pros right now. And I think the Primes have been denied the right to battle with their class and instead having to focus on battling with the other class to hold overall position. But as Lee Horn here defends into turn 10, Pike tries to go around the outside. He can't find it, so he cuts it back, but he can't cut it back either, as that's a run up towards turn 11. And Lee Horn knows exactly what's coming. He puts it right there on the inside and says to Pike, you're going to have to go the long way round and then some if you want this move. But of course for Andrew Pike, as we ride on board here with the Elantra driver, Martin Shirley trying to get his nose on the inside. He can't find it, and now Pike will be able to unleash the power of the Elantra as they make the way down towards turn number 1. And will Lee Horn, you'll see, will get closer and closer, millisecond by millisecond, as they make the way in towards the opening corner onto the brakes. Horn covers it off here. Pike's made to go round the outside. He has to yield again, and really right now for the Sim Racing Collective driver, he needs to try and pick a way on through, because I mean he's got so much pace, but he just cannot deploy it. And to be fair, right now with Mikey Doble being held up behind Matthew Addy, you would imagine that Pike, if he can clear this, will feel a lot safer in hunting down the guy in front. But as they make the way on through, I don't think it's long here before Mikey Doble makes the move, and Matthew Addy's up the inside into turn number 6 and gets it done, then moves up into P3 overall as they come on through. And Nick Clemens, meanwhile, with a slowdown coming out of what was turn number 5. Well, the iRacing Esports driver drops to P5 overall, P4 in the pro class here, outside of the pro podium positions, but still high up there and well inside the top 5 as it currently stands. Meanwhile, Michael Lees, for a brief moment there, the rear of the car gun, we could hear it, albeit off camera, and we cut to him just as he's recovered the car. He drops back to P9, as meanwhile Sam Smith here in the overall top 10, where he's defending versus Bernardo Kolbe, who takes a look up the inside. He's opened the door for himself. Can he get the run out of the corner and up towards turn number 11? Well, Smith will cover it off as best as he can here as he cuts back. Does Kolbe to the inside, then does the switchback, but Smith tries to outbrake his rival, but Kolbe says, I'm going all in, and all in he goes as they make the way out to turn 11 and up towards 1 once again. That's going to be a drag race of the Hondas, and will Kolbe definitely doing everything in his power here to fight hard as they run side by side in towards 1. He wants an overall top 10, and as they come onto the brakes, well, it's going to be Jamie Dory tucked in behind, but Kolbe gets on through and takes P10 overall off of Sam Smith. As well, Jamie Dory looks to try and get on through soon. Smith goes deep. He'll defend into turn 3, but I think the door has been more than open here, and Dory is going to sneak on through in the point for you. That's P8 in the pro class, P11 overall as they come through the chicane and up towards turn number 6 they go once again. Meanwhile, further back we look to Alan McCain, who right now trying to find his way past Isaac Doble, pushing it as much as he possibly can. Joseph Doble just a little bit further up the road. This is the battle for P17 that you're looking at as they make their way into the braking zone. McCain looks up the inside, but he can't quite find it. Elwin Sykes also there. Chris Danes also there. Danes comes on for a brief tap between the Honda and the Audi driver. Danes versus Sykes, but nothing between them as they make the way on through when it's turn number 7. And Sykes right now, I think, recognising he may as well back off a little bit here, use the pro driver of Danes to bring him closer to McCain and Doble as they make the way through 8 and 9. They head up through the right-hander and 9 now, and behind they've also got Philip Bruberg, who's inching closer and closer every corner turn. Meanwhile, looking a bit further back up the field from them, we can see Isaac Doble here just staying ahead as Chris Danes goes the inside there and makes it count versus what is Alan McCain, or does he? It's now the Elantra really puts the throttle down, and McCain defends it all the way into 11. Danes tries to turn on in, but he finds the Elantra part there, goes to the cutback instead from first gear, and Danes are really trying to be smart in terms of getting the power versus the power car of the Elantra as they make the way across the timeline. Meanwhile, Jamie Dory around the outside for P10 overall versus Bernardo Kolbe, but the prime driver is not giving in to the pro as they make the way into 12 and 13, but Dory gets it done around the outside of 1-2, and there's a brief tap there between Smith and Kolbe. Kolbe on the grass, the car's going to drift a little bit as they come through. There's more contact, and Smith and Kolbe come together, but they both just about survive it, but that could have been a disaster for the pair of them. For Smith it's not worked out, but for Kolbe he's just been able to hold on to most of the pieces, albeit Joseph Doble at the inside here for Joseph Doble right now. and given that Bernardo Kolbe was at the time running P3 in the class, he's going to be giving it everything. As meanwhile, Alan McCain is off, and oh, goodness me, what on earth has happened here? Elwyn Sykes and Alan McCain both off to the gravel at turn 6, and we'll take a look back at that very shortly. But meanwhile, after everything that's happened right now with Kolbe losing out and Joseph Doble having a difficult start to the race, going deep at turn 1, P3 in the Pro-Am class right now is CSA Race's Davide Favo, and the South African driver here, whether he knows it's there or not, he is on course potentially to bring home his maiden podium class position. Trying to say that too fast as they make their way into turn number 11, and Paul Scott's now getting into the mix here to be inside the top 5 of the Pro-Am class as they make their way through 11 and down towards 1 once again. 4 more laps to go here. Paul Scott has come out of left field and says, right boys, it's my turn to play, and he is pushing after Joseph Doble. Doble goes defensive here, and Paul Scott's trying to look for the move of return on the outside, which has been so effective for so many drivers. But in return, Doble there gets it right, goes overly deep, but Paul Scott goes to the cutback, but there's not enough for a run to turn number 2, and he has to wait. As meanwhile, Sam Smith once again tries to find his way past Kolbe. Well, I don't think he's going to be able to find it at the moment. He has to back out and wait. But meanwhile, speaking of backing out, we back ourselves back to the time where Alan McCain and Elwyn Sykes went off circuit and find out what exactly happened. Well, this was in the run to turn number 6, 3 wide here. And, well, there was contact between, I believe, what was Elwyn Sykes and Chris Daines, and then the two of them came together a little bit more after that, and that is what sent Elwyn Sykes off to the gravel. And what exactly happened for Elwyn Sykes was he came on in the contact with Chris Daines initially. Daines has come on back, and he's come into contact over Elwyn Sykes, and that is what sent it. That is what's caused it. So it was the initial contact between Sykes and Daines that sent off McCain, and then Daines and Sykes coming together again, and it was Sykes that was sent to the gravel and almost to the wall. But as we return to the live pictures right now, still have 3 laps to go as our leaders gone to lap number 11, and here are your race leaders. We haven't talked about them in some time. Gavin Garner leads this race ahead of Daniel Holmer, the Verano Motorsport driver, who made the move on Holmer in the opening corners. 6 laps to go, but right now Daniel Holmer is staying with him, has recently set a purple lap, a 28.92 versus Gavin Garner's last lap of 29.06. As they make the way through the chicane here, you would imagine that Gavin Garner may just have something to say about Daniel Holmer trying to put his foot down a little bit and holding on for the remainder of the race, because Garner, to be fair, since taking the lead of this race, has not looked as though he's hesitating to push it harder. Mikey Doble, meanwhile, 7 seconds back. Well, I think that tradition of Doble making it 3 wins out of 3 in any round where he takes the win in the opening race, I think that tradition may come to an end in the NXTCC, but it's been running on for a whole multitude of seasons, but it will come to a stop here unless Garner and Holmer take one another off circuit or somehow take 7 seconds out of their race in battling. But let's not say never, it could happen, of course. And meanwhile, further back here, Lee Horn right now running P8 overall. Well, he's lost out, I think, in the run after Matthew Addy for the win of the Pro-Am class, but he's still doing everything he can to hold on to a place inside the overall top 10 as he holds off Martin Shirley behind and chases after Michael Lees. But things are calming down to a degree inside the overall top 10. Outside the overall top 10, that is where the fruit of the action is right now, as we see Paul Scott trying to chase after Joseph Doble, and we ride on board here with the Next Gen Racing Blue and the Audi Sport Customer Racing RS3 as he makes his way up towards turn number 11. As they make their way onto the brakes here. Again, we're not quite in Audi territory at the moment with short straights and heavy braking zones. Now we are, however, as we head onto the longest straight here and extended braking zone as they make their way into turn number 1 gradually. As they charge across that timeline here to go onto the penultimate lap, you'll see the Audi gradually gaining gap over with the Honda in front as they head onto the brakes here. The Honda just able to brake a little bit deeper. Of course, Paul Scott having to lift off there due to the slipstream effect, and as they make their way up towards turn number 2, having to bide his time. Meanwhile, further back, Philip Bruberg on the outside here of Isaac Doble in the battle for P7 in the Pro-Am class, P16 overall. Isaac Doble covers off his rivals. They make their way into turn number 2. Chris Daines comes in up there, and there's a little bit of contact with Reese Watt, and Reese Watt, after a great race too, it's gone backwards, and Ian Manners comes on through there to take P9 in the Pro-Am class off of him as they make their way up towards turn number 6. But I think there Chris Daines may be lifted off to give the place back to what was Reese Watt. It did look as though their Daines came in a little bit too hot into the corner from our camera position, but of course that's only what the camera tells us, as there's contact on the rear of Daines. from Nigel Stock, who comes in a little bit too warm into the corner. Stock off into the grass, and Alan McCain comes on through right now as they make the way through turn number 7. And McCain here, I think, will just wait behind Chris Danes. I don't think he'll push it. He's going to go for it, in fact, as the iRacing Esports driver. And will the two of them come together? And I think McCain there going on in a bit late in the day. But as they make the way on through, that's going to bring Luke Jones and Mark Sykes back into the equation. But it is not a happy day for the Runner Motorsport driver Chris Danes, that is for certain, as Luke Jones gets on through McCain. And we are on to the final lap from our leaders. And speaking of our leaders, well, here's Lee Horn inside the top 10. P2 Prime is trying to hold off the pro of Michael Lees for P7 overall as they come on through. And then Paul Scott battling side by side here with Joseph Doble, as Doble defends versus Paul Scott. But most importantly, here is your race leader of Verona Motorsports, Gavin Gardner, the Briton, right now holding on to P6. He's still got Daniel Holmer behind him, but Holmer has not been able to get that gap down below 6/10 over the last 4 laps, despite the fact that Holmer has put in the fastest lap of this race. But the difference is now that every lap that Holmer has been able to put in, Gavin Gardner has matched it perfectly. And as they make their way through the sweepers and up towards turn number 10, I think Daniel Holmer here will still be very pleased in the Pro Class to take a P2 in such an intense field. But right now, I think really it's all about this man at the very front of the field, for as he makes his way up towards the final corner, he's just got to hold on here. Holmer will do everything to try and distract him into the final corner, but I don't think he's going to find it, as Gardner there hooks it up nicely. And as he comes through the final corner, it's been a long time coming, but he's your winner in race number 3. It's Gavin Gardner from Verona Motorsport who takes the win ahead of Daniel Holmer. Overall in the Pro Class, Mikey Doble will make it 3rd place in race number 3 ahead of Matthew Addy, 4th overall. Your winner, your triple winner today in the Pro-Am class, Nick Clemens P5 ahead of Andrew Pike P6, and then it will be Lee Horn at P7 who holds off Michael Lees to the end overall. P2 in the Pro-Am class, Michael Lees P8, Martin Shirley P9, and then Jamie Dory P10. Davide Farvo brings home his maiden podium in the Pro-Am class, P3 in the Pro Class, P11 overall. The CSA Racing team must be absolutely proud of that. I know Farvo will be. And then Joseph Doble, P12, just not enough to get him onto the podium in the final race of the day. Paul Scott, P5 in class, P13 overall for the Pro driver ahead of Bernardo Colbe. And then Sam Smith, P15 overall ahead of Isaac Doble, who just beats Philip Bruberg to the post. Ian Manners, P18, Reese Watt, P19. And what has been a very difficult race number 3 for Reese Watt. And then Alan McCain completes your top 20 with Luke Jones P21 ahead of Mark Sykes P22 and then Elwyn Sykes P23. And I think he's been turned round there in the run through the chicanes. Nigel Stock P24, Stefan Vessels P25, as I think the two CSA are racing teammates. They give one another knockabout. Jonathan Collins P26, and then Chris Danes, well parked up there right at the finish line, P27, all said and done. And Adam Delmont a lap down in P28, but still finishing the race a lap down after a difficult start to his day. But my goodness, what a race it has been. And well, flashing his lights there, you can understand why he'll be absolutely jumping up and down inside that cockpit. It's your Pro-Am triple winner today of Matthew Addy for Next Gen Racing Yellow. He has delivered here, and with Reese Watt losing a major number of points, the momentum is going to swing his way in the Pro-Am Championship. But of course, it could go any which way, and we'll have to wait and see what happens in the next round. Meanwhile, as all of our drivers do make the way on in, Lee Horn as well, really back on form, the Next Gen Racing Yellow driver, and he will be happy with that one, there's no question. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for us to take a look at those provisional results subject to any stewards' inquiries. After our 3rd race of the day, then, overall results of Gavin Gardner taking the overall win by 0.3 of a second over Daniel Holmer P2, and Mikey Doble completing the overall podium with Matthew Addy there, your Pro-Am winner P4, ahead of Nick Clemens P5, and then Andrew Pike P6. Lee Horn P7 in the end, not able to take the fight to Matthew Addy, but I think in the end more focused on defending overall position. The Next Gen Racing Yellow driver making it a triplet of podiums today in the Pro-Am class, P2 in the Prime, P7 overall, ahead of Michael Lees P8, and then Martin Shirley and Jamie Dory completing the top 10, with Jamie Dory coming all the way through the field to finish just inside the top 10, and that could be a critical result in his championship campaign. Then at best of the rest there, P3 in the Pro-Am class, the maiden podium for him, it is CSA Races Davide Farvo bringing it on home there, the South African driver. A fantastic drive from him. And then as we come on to the individual classes, We can see here, firstly, Gavin Garner taking the win in the pro class ahead of Daniel Homer and Mikey Doble. That's your pro podium. And then Nick Clemens, P4 ahead of Andrew Pike. Unfortunate the Sim Racing Collective today to not pick up a podium, but at the end of the day, still a brilliant set of results from them and looking to deliver all the same. And the Englishman there doing everything to bring home a top 5 ahead of Michael Lees, Martin Shelley Pearson, Jamie Dory P8, Sam Smith P9 and Chris Daines completing that top 10 ahead of Adam Delmont, who finished a lap down, and Wayne Douglas there with that very early retirement. Then coming on to the Pro-Am class, we can see here your winner, making it 3 out of 3, Matthew Addy ahead of Lee Horn by 8.2 seconds, and then Davide Favo P3, and then Joseph Doble P4 ahead of Paul Scott P5, and Paul Scott in the end battling into that top 5 with everything happening around him and picking up the pieces where Bernardo Cobe left off. Bernardo Cobe finishing P6 in the end ahead of Isaac Doble, Philip Brubo P8, Ian Manners P9 and Reese Watt P10, with Alan McCain P11 best of the rest of the primes ahead of Luke Jones, Mark Sykes, Elwin Sykes, Nigel Stock, Stefan Vessels and Jonathan Collins. But that's how they'll finish provisionally. We'll have to wait to see what comes out from the post-race stewarding, ladies and gentlemen. But with that means it is now time for our post-round interviews with our volunteer drivers. We'll be back in approximately 10 minutes to hear the thoughts from a multitude of our drivers. Until then, don't go anywhere. You won't want to miss them. We'll catch you shortly. Alrighty then, ladies and gentlemen, we are back for our post-round interviews with our selected drivers. And, well, unfortunately, not many of our drivers are available at the moment, but you can understand why. I think they're all a bit tired after getting back to the racing as of this evening, and therefore I think most of them have decided to start making their way on home already, or making their way to the land of sleep. But still, we do have one driver available who we will be speaking to very shortly, and that is none other than our end of day winner in race number 3, Gavin Gardner, who we'll be hearing from Verona Motorsport, who's really had a great run of results over the course of today and really turning around what has been a challenging season so far in this round. But as he joins us now in the interview room, Gavin, it's been a challenging season, to say the least, with the first 4 rounds seeing you battling to be inside the top 5 in the Verona Motorsport Audi RS3. But after coming back from the Christmas break, you are absolutely on fire today. 2 P4s on the bounce and in a win in race number 3. It must feel as though all the hard work is finally paying off.
I'd say it's been a good evening. I don't think everyone's had fun tonight, but I definitely have.
Oh, indeed. And just taking us through what an evening you've had. Qualifying looked very close from the outset there. At one point, you're running in P2. It looks like it was always going to be the question of who could finish P2 in the qualifying session behind Mikey Doble. But you had a lot of pace in the first half of the qualifying session, and it never really came together in the second half. Did you feel as though perhaps the car didn't have the pace you expected?
I think, yeah, maybe a little bit. I think I did a 28.8 in the practice just before. I did a few laps last night, and just the Audis felt really, really good here. This is probably the best track so far for the Audi, just in terms of sort of the fast-flowing corners, which seem to suit it. No sort of fiddly changes of direction or particularly slow corners where the Audi struggles. I think going into qualifying, I sort of set that decent lap early on. I did come in and change the tyres, which is something that I did last time out at Red Bull Ring. It seems to work out for me quite well there. I think I've qualified 4th. I think it maybe didn't quite work out. I just couldn't get the temperature in the tyres again, and yeah, just couldn't get the lap quite together. But I think I ended up P6, which I was pretty happy with compared with some of the qualifyings I've had this season, especially earlier on. So I wasn't too upset, but yeah, there's definitely a little bit more out there.
Oh, indeed. And then translating that from what was qualifying into race number 1, we saw up front there was a little bit of drama between Wayne Douglas and Adam Delman into turn number 1. But meanwhile, you seem to stay clear of all the drama and just gradually pick up the pieces where other drivers fell off, and also made a couple of overtakes.
Yeah. So test my memory going back to race 1 now. Yeah, it was a good race. I sort of knowing that the sort of turn 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 was very fiddly. I didn't want to have much contact, so sort of just trying to not get involved with everyone. I think maybe there was a little bit of contact between me and I think it was Michael Lees and Shirley, and I think Shirley unfortunately turned around in that. But I managed to sort of keep on track, sort of before the safety car. And yeah, so I held my position. I think I was in 6th when the safety car came out, maybe.
Oh, indeed. And after the safety car went back in, we saw you really trying to charge and put the pressure on in the run for P1. It did look as though it was a two-way fight between Adam Delman and Mikey Doble for the win. But at the same time, Wayne Douglas just a bit further behind, and yourself running in P4. I have to ask, were you waiting to see if any drama would happen at the front, and you were just sort of settling into that P4? What was your tactic there?
Yeah, I think after restart, I think there was a couple got wiped out in front of me. Then, like you say, it was Delmont and Doble, and I think it might have been Pike in 3rd. I can't quite remember, sorry. Yeah, I think, like you say, they were having a bit of a battle and managed to keep up. I was sort of hoping, I didn't want to get involved, knowing that if I got involved, I'd probably only hold myself up. I was hoping I could just sit behind, and then maybe, if they continued battling into the last few laps, maybe try and snap something up then. But those guys were just too quick. I just couldn't keep up. And in the end, I was happy settling for 4th place.
Oh, indeed. Whilst they may have been a little bit faster, still 4th is no mean feat. And repeating that again in race number 2, and a bit of a quiet race for yourself, race number 2. But at the same time, having to put the hard work in to keep the charging primes behind you at bay.
Yes, indeed. I think that was a good race in the sense that it's just nice and clean, like I like to do. I think off the start, I think a couple of people had jumps and had to take penalties for that. I think Dory got past me, but he had a jump. Chris had a jump start as well. And then it was just, I think I was stuck behind Wayne Douglas. Well, not stuck behind him. I was trying to overtake him for the whole race as Doble and Delmont got away, but just didn't quite have the pace to get past Wayne there. But yeah, really fun race with him. Just needed a little bit more, I think, to actually pull off the overtake.
When you say needing a little bit more, did you feel as though it was perhaps the advantages of the Veloster that Douglas was piloting versus the strengths and weaknesses of the Audi that were coming on through? Just take us through that dynamic, because there were so many times you got close and we thought you might try and get your nose in on the inside into turn 1, on the run out of the chicane in towards turn number 6, but as you say, you just didn't quite have that last 5%.
Yeah, I think I was fairly happy with fourth place. I didn't want to force anything. Like you say, the velocity definitely had a little bit of a straight line advantage. I think when I was sort of 0.2, 0.3 behind, the slipstream was worth more. And there was a couple of times where I sort of, like I say, had my nose in front, but Wayne drove very well. His defensive driving was pretty much perfect. There weren't any slip-ups I could take advantage of. Unfortunately for me, which I was kind of waiting for. I think when it got to sort of the last few laps, I tried to force it a little bit, but I just didn't have that. Like I say, that last 5% talent deficit, I guess.
Well, I definitely think you don't lack talent, because we're just watching at the moment in the background you making the pass around the outside of Daniel Holmer for the win in race number 3. And just take us through. We'll come on to the whole race, but just take us through that moment going round the outside of Daniel Holmer through the final corner into turn number 1 in the final race of the day to take the lead and never give it up. That must have felt special.
Yeah, that felt pretty good. I guess I had a bit of a warm-up for that with Wayne Douglas. I think I tried to go around the outside in race 2, and I think I was sort of not quite far enough in front. There was a little bit of contact, and he managed to keep it in front. I think for this one, I got a much better run out the second last corner, and I knew I was sort of far enough ahead that I could kind of put a bit of a squeeze on. Just, make sure he didn't try and run it out to the outside, make sure he knew I was there. And then I don't know if the Elantra has as much of a sort of speed boost as the Veloster does, but like I said, I just had the legs to get down to turn 1 before he did, and put in front. And then from there, I was hoping to run away with it, but he managed to keep up very well and keep the pressure on. But yeah, I think I just managed to not have any mistakes and keep it clean enough to keep in P1.
Well, indeed, there were no mistakes from that point onwards. And the race as a whole, of course, we had a reverse grid top 9 with yourself starting quite close to the middle of that top 9. When you saw the number 9 was drawn out, did you have any thoughts around that, or was it just head down, it's another day at the office?
I sort of said to Chris, like, when Doble gets behind me, I'll let him through. And apart from that, I'll just see what happens. I think I wasn't expecting a huge amount. I think Doble and Delmont must have had some sort of incident. I saw Delmont had jumped to the pits at some point, and Doble didn't seem to have the same pace he did in the first 2 races. I guess early on, I think I had a very good start. I think I got past a couple off the line and then ended up in P2 quite early on. And then, I think the Audi had the legs, especially early on in the race, but let me get past and then, keep it there. So it wasn't exactly what I planned, but happy days.
Well, indeed, a brilliant start, and followed up then by the move and just being able to hold off Holmer to the line. Meanwhile, when you're speaking about Mikey Doble, we can tell you that he was held up in the end in battling his way past the likes of Lee Horn, Andrew Pike, Nick Clemens and Matthew Addy, trying to pick his way past the pram. So by the time yourself and Holmer had settled your differences, Doble was 7 seconds back down the road and slowly catching, but not enough. But focusing on yourself, of course, brilliant set of results today. We head to Watkins Glen in the United States in a week's time. How are you feeling for the classic American circuit?
Watkins Glen is not one of my favourite tracks. I don't really like it, but I think it might be another one that suits the Audi, just in the sense that I said high-speed corners. This track was good because I think the Audi never had any of those corners where it's kind of between gears. A lot of the time, if there's sort of a slow hairpin, you'll be between second and third, and the Audi just won't get any drive. The hairpin at this track was 3rd gear easily, and the Audi did have the drive out of it. Watkins Glen, I think the only potential issue could be the bus stop. I don't know how the Audi's going to behave over the curbs there. But apart from that, it should do pretty well. Like I said, high-speed corners, which the Audi seems to like a lot more than slow, wiggly stuff.
Well, we could be seeing you fly high with your teammates in the United States in a week's time. And just noting there in the YouTube chat, Chris Daines saying, well done, Gavin, on the results and the win tonight. Solid driving and well-deserved, dude. Proud of you. It sounds as though you've definitely raised all the spirits within the team.
Yeah, hopefully. I think Chris had a bit of a few incidents tonight, unfortunately. But like I sort of said at the start, I had a good race. I had fun. Yeah, no, it's been fun for me.
Oh, indeed. And just before we do let you go, Gavin, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out to or say thank you to live on the broadcast this evening?
Yeah, as always, thanks to you. Thanks, Paul, for the broadcast, the commentary. It's always great fun to watch. Cheers to everyone at NXTGEN and Martin and Gaza for helping sort the races. And yeah, cheers to everyone at Verano and Chris for being my teammate. Makes it much more fun to have a few guys to race with. And yeah, it's been good stuff.
Well, Gavin, with that, we must say thank you to yourself for joining us in at the interview room, but congratulations once again on your 2 P4s and the win in the final race of the day. And we do look forward to seeing you on circuit in a week's time in the US of A.
Cheers, Paul. Thanks again.
All the best. So hearing there from Gavin Gardner, your winner of race number 3 overall and 4th place finisher in both races 1 and 2. I think absolutely chuffed with the result in the finale, but also very happy with the 2 P4 finishes in the first 2 races of the day. And well, for the simple reason, when you think about it, it's sometimes not about making it a podium in every race, but it's about finishing where you think you're going to finish strong and finish well. And that was the thing with Gavin today. He picked up the key results. Not quite on the pace to pit Wayne Douglas to 3rd place in race number 2, nor able, and he did correct us there, to be able to get past Andrew Pike in race number 1 for P3, but at the same time as well, making sure that the Audi RS3 flew high and flew fast, and well, it's going to be quite a strong car at the United States in a week's time. Watkins Glen having much faster corners, which the Audi works well, and as we heard there from Gavin himself saying that the Audi does prefer corners with a bit more speed to the apex, and could we potentially see him be back on that top step once again? That'll be the big question that everyone will be asking, and we will find out if he's able to do so. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that is the last of our interviews for today. Only one interviewee. Unfortunately, no other drivers available for interview. But again, I do think the majority of our drivers have decided to pack up the bags early and get themselves set for some rest and get ready for the next round. But you did hear this evening from the number 11 driver of Gavin Gardner, the pro driver from Verano Motorsport. And well, we must now begin to wrap up. So with that, thank you very much for watching. And if you have enjoyed the show today and want to know more about the Next Gen racing community, why not check out our official website? Our website being at www.nextgenracing.co.uk. And well, our website, as you can see here, is the home of clean and fair sim racing for all, where we host professionally organised sim racing events, championships, and have the wider community. And you can see all of our current leagues and events on our official website. Alternatively, if you do not want to go to our website, you can always go to our official Facebook group, which also contains all of the information you need if you want to be on the grid of any of our events or know when the upcoming broadcasts are. And our Facebook group again at facebook.com/groups/NextGen Racing. But now we must look forward to it next time, ladies and gentlemen, because we have resumed the story of the Next Gen Racing Touring Car Championship Season 2. And the story now will continue into round number 6 in a week's time. Reserve the date, Tuesday the 10th of January 2023. We go stateside for the Watkins Glen International Circuit. It's a good old American classic. It's fast, it's furious, it's all about carrying speed from corner to corner. It's very different from where we were today in Japan at the Twin Ring Motegi circuit, but one thing will be staying the same, and that is the intensity and closeness of the racing, and it is definitely going to be a blast around Watkins Glen next Tuesday. But until then, thank you very much for watching. We've been Next Gen Racing. I've been your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain Spit. And until next time, remember to stay well, stay safe, stay smiling, but most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.